Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
It's a blessing to be in this position, and we're just thankful to be here. We're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and play in front of the 12 man.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
While many schools have been panicking, OB, Texas A&M is positioning. That's what they've been doing. That's why they hired Trev Alberts a little over a year ago, and we will see what the future looks like, because in the next 7 days, a week from today, the new era of college football or college athletics begins as the next phase of NIL era, the clearinghouse era, if you will, begins. And yesterday, I was not there. You were at a press conference with Trev Alberts where he kind of laid out the framework for what Texas A&M is going to be doing here with all these changes in college sports.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, you know, I don't know what anybody's, you know, I have your opinion on Trev Alberts. But you have to admit he's organized and forward thinking.
Yep.
He's trying to anticipate. He's always has been trying to anticipate the changes you talked about in college sports and how to navigate them.
Yep.
And a lot of it is bringing in money and then figuring out how to disperse it.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we're going to judge Trev Alberts, we are, I believe, on how successful the programs are in the new era, right? So how he hires coaches, right?
Right.
Keeping Coach Early, Bucky McMillan, all the changes, right? And how successful these programs are. And one of the comments he talked about is the modernization of college sports. I forget the exact quote, but can A&M stay above the changes, and can they stay above everybody else as we continue to evolve?
Well, he seems to feel like they can. Again, he said this is our time.
Yep.
We'll see. He even acknowledged, yeah, I've heard that before. You know, maybe not from him. But look, the future of college sports is about, you know, it is the how will we say this? Not just the payment of players, but I guess the organized payment of players.
Yep.
And how you're going to bring in the money, how you're going to have the money available to pay them, and then as it goes up, bring in more, and then help them with their NIL deals, which so that way you can like transfer money.
Yep.
I mean, it's a lot of moving parts, but he seems to have as much a grasp on what's happening as anybody. Now, you said he'll ultimately be judged on the
success of the
on the
programs.
fields and on the courts. And it's part of being successful is how you're going to manage this money that the players want.
And the money, by the way, for those who didn't hear it yesterday, $18 million, and I guess that's the way we understand it is there's 20 that's
20 and a half.
But $2 million of those goes towards SEC fees?
Look, I got to admit, I'm kind of fuzzy on it. I asked him about it twice, and, you know, I'm thick-headed on certain things. Apparently, there was a $2.5 million mandate for the SEC that goes to scholarships. Okay. Well, and maybe not, but I know the SEC mandated $2.5 million to go somewhere. I thought so. That is subtracted from the 20.5 that everybody gets. See, the Big Ten doesn't do that.
Right.
So they got a little bit more money.
I'm laughing not because of what you're saying, but do you hear the noise that this is?
Yeah, it's this chair.
Is it the chair?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was maybe the platform was going to break and we're going to be embarrassed to be a YouTube or a social media sensation. We'll go viral for breaking the table.
I think it's the chair.
Yeah. By the
I
way,
think the chair needs to be oiled.
we're in the holistic planning cool zone.
Yeah,
And it's
even if that
cool.
wasn't
Even
so-
if we fall, we're still cool.
I think a lot of people watching would think it'd be cool if we fell.
Yeah, that's true. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I missed you, buddy. It's been a couple days.
Well, I hope you had a great time. And
I did.
While you're off. So
I didn't do much. Like this summer is not about vacations. It's about just, I had some family in town from Florida. We connected with them. My boys turned 17 yesterday. Took them to a nice
Congratulations, boys.
a lunch that felt like dinner because we weren't hungry afterwards. It was one of those places you get a lot of meats.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, it wasn't Thursday or Friday or Saturday.
No, we couldn't go to the number one choice.
Yeah,
So we
okay.
went to another meat place for their birthday.
All right.
So
I'm glad they had a good time.
yeah, they did. They had a really nice time. All right, so by the way, the $18 million is going to go to football and others. And we are assuming that maybe 3/4 of the money will go to football, probably. That's kind of what we're hearing from other programs, right?
There is a template that not everybody has to follow, but it seems to be popular, that 75% goes to football, 15% goes to men's basketball, 5% to, I guess, baseball, and 5% to women's sports. Now, not everybody has to follow that. And Trev Alberts was not willing to announce how the money that A&M has will be dispersed and what percentages.
And this is revenue sharing. There are still opportunities for all sports to be able to take advantage of NIL. This is the revenue sharing through the university.
Yes.
So the programs, football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, softball, and volleyball. Those are the sports that are going to be getting this rev share.
Yeah, that all that makes sense, especially when you see the kind of success that volleyball's had of late and softball too. You know what he said? I don't know if you caught this or not. He said that he talked to now he tells us, and I'm going to take him at his words, that A&M coaches have all been very receptive to what's going on and cooperative. He said that he's talked, some of his colleagues, other athletic directors have talked about how they got coaches like
bickering.
Like, why are you giving that money to that program? I need it, kind of thing. Well, and I hope that's happening everywhere.
Well, but
except here.
But I also think these coaches probably are calling other universities and like, what are they doing with you guys?
Yeah.
This is what they're doing. Oh, so it seems to be like this is kind of what's happening throughout. It's not just an A&M thing. You know, his old school
he was saying
Nebraska.
It's not an A&M thing,
right? Yeah.
And hopefully he's right. But yeah, what I get the feeling is like maybe I'll just say volleyball coach at some place and gymnastics coach at some place are lobbying the athletic director. Why are you sending that money to them? Because, stating their case.
Sure.
And then they get mad at each other. I don't know. I don't want to have any derision at Texas A&M, but I would love derision at other places.
Well, is it 410 scholarships that they're going to be funding with, which is an increase in what they've done in the past?
Significant increase. I think I don't have the handout that he gave us yesterday. Trev gave us, but I think they were funded 255.2 scholarships last year.
Okay, so that's a significant.
Yeah. So, but we knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Billy Lucci's been telling us for months that all of baseball was going to get funded, which should have been forever.
And football is going to be 85 scholarships.
Still 85.
Yeah. But your roster can go up to 105.
Yes, and I don't foresee this happening in football, but I learned that Mike Elko will have at least I think this is what I was told. This is the way I interpret it, that Mike Elko has the option of splitting scholarships like they had always done in baseball. So he has 85 scholarships, but that doesn't mean that maybe you have 2 walk-ons. You know how every year it seems like there's a walk-on that gets a scholarship?
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's 2 guys that say, hey, tell you what, guys, I'll give you a half a scholarship.
And you half a scholarship.
Yeah. I think that's what they're saying.
All right, so let's listen, because the time is now, right? And
that's what he said.
And it's time to listen to Trev Alberts breaking it all down.
Yeah, I think this is our time at Texas A&M. I think this is a perfect time for us. Obviously, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of challenge, but I think this is a time where things have just kind of fallen in place. We have great unity amongst our Board of Regents, our Chancellor's office, the President's office, and our coaching staff and administration. So we're working hard on unity of purpose. I think this is our chance to leverage the collective strength of Texas A&M, the Association of Former Students, everything that makes this place different. The scale of Texas A&M is our chief, advantage. And so this is our time. If we have the courage to make tough decisions and act and modernize in some of those areas that we talked about earlier, I think Texas A&M can separate and do things we've never done here before. That's why we're all here. You have an opportunity at Texas A&M to do things that most people can't do because of scale, because of resources, and other things.
What do you think he means by that last line there? That we can do things here that other places can't. So is that I asked a question, I'm following it up. Is that to say that some other places that have maybe been national powers in the past don't have the resources and the funds that A&M has, and they could fall behind while A&M takes a huge leap?
Yes, they didn't say everybody, right?
Sure.
But I think he believes, which is true and should have been the case for decades now, that A&M has the resources and now getting the organization, everything in place to be an elite athletic program on a national scale. Not everybody has the same ability that A&M has.
Well, you think about it. They're going to be funding 6 sports with revenue sharing. And I would assume most schools are going to either tier or cut, right? So, and A&M is taking a big bulk of what matters to our fan base, and they're going to put more resources and more dollars and cents to make sense.
I think so. He did say, look, he's working all kinds of ways to get more money, more revenue stream, greater. He doesn't want a revenue stream. He wants a revenue river, right? Yeah. Everybody wants that. And he doesn't, there's going to be cuts, but he made this, I thought it was a great quote. He said, I don't think you reach prosperity by cuts. Now you have to make some intelligent cuts, and he's done that already before, and there may be more coming. But to do what he really wants to do, what A&M wants to do, you've got to produce revenue, not just cut expenses.
By the way, I had maybe you can explain it to me when he's talking about the modernization of sports, but also how did he phrase it? Threading the needle between tradition and modernization. Right. Where does tradition play a part?
I think it comes back to do you want to have a naming rights on Kyle Field?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Are we going to see a Buc-ee's patch on football jerseys?
Yeah.
See?
And the answer is yes. Like at some point, I don't know about Kyle Field, but at some point, you've got to continue to bring in revenue streams to be able to do all these big things and also separate you from the other programs.
Right. So I think that's what he's talking about. And that's an interesting question because tradition means more to A&M than anywhere else.
Yep.
So how would you feel as an Aggie, not just you, but any Aggie, to be what's a strong company with A&M?
Yeti.
Kyle Field at Yeti Stadium, however you want to say it. How would you feel about it? How would you feel about seeing a Buc-ee's patch on an A&M jersey?
Look, I evolve.
If it means that more money is coming into your program and you're getting better players all across athletics and you're winning at a higher level, does the commercialization of it, is it acceptable in that case?
I think it kind of depends on what era you're from, right? So,
well, that's why I say Aggies out there.
No, but like most people that from my generation and older, no matter what, it's Kyle Field. Just like, excuse me for using this example, it is Minute Maid Park for the Astros, even though they've changed it to Dyken Park.
Where does that A&M baseball team play?
Bluebell.
Not Olsen Field.
Olsen Field. There you go. You got me. You got me. Yeah. I think both are interchangeable when talking about baseball, though. Will that be the future?
Will Yeti Stadium be the? Are you ready? Are you willing to have Yeti Stadium be the home of the Aggies. And you know what? Yeah, and Kyle Field. But your first response was Blue Bell Park.
Yeah. We've already done it, though, right? So it could be done again.
What I'm saying is if it means the difference between winning,
I think, yes.
or winning at a high level.
Let's listen to Trev talk about that, because there's a soundbite about this exact topic about threading the needle through modernization and tradition.
What makes college athletics and university special is our traditions. It's like that's what separates Texas A&M. There isn't a place in the country that is more proud, and rightfully so, of the traditions. The reality, though, is when change happens to you that you didn't instigate, you have a simple choice. You either adjust and adapt and modernize to that approach, or you don't. And you never stay the same in college athletics. You're either getting better or you're falling behind. And so I think at a place like Texas A&M, I think the most important thing to think through is how do you thread the needle between staying true to the traditions that make this place unique, and yet how do you modernize? And that's a hard thing. And that's why what we've tried to say is let's make the North Star in all of our decision making what is in the best long-term interest of Texas A&M and Texas A&M athletics. Not any individual or organization, it's Texas A&M athletics. And so I think when you think that way, you can go too fast and modernize too fast and really put some of your traditions at risk, or you can be too slow. So that's why I don't do it all by myself. I work with a group of folks that are very, very helpful to me to understand, and I'm learning more. But I'm going to push hard on the modernization. I'm going to push hard on thinking differently, because I think if we don't, we won't have the business success that we need to ultimately fund the support of our programs to win.
After you explaining it to me, what he was talking about, he's telling us it's coming. That's what it sounds like to me.
I want it to be Dude Perfect Stadium.
Dude Perfect Stadium. At Kyle Field?
At Kyle Field, or Kyle Field at Dude Perfect. I don't know which way it goes. Do you put the commercial stadium name first and then Kyle Field, or vice versa?
I think you do Kyle Field twice.
Welcome to Kyle Field at Dude Perfect Stadium.
At Kyle Field.
At Kyle Field.
Yeah.
What about TexAgs Stadium at Kyle Field? Come on now.
Pay me first.
And me.
I'm not playing this game. I'm staying away from
he's already getting paid.
No.
He's making Gabe Bach money.
How do I transition from that?
I don't know.
Oh, thanks, buddy. All right.
That used to be a bit.
It was?
Gabe Bach money.
Gabe Bach money. Hey, I'm curious. Nick, by the way, welcome to the show.
Maybe we're going to have Gabe Bach Stadium.
Gabe.
I mean, he's
Bach Realty Stadium? I can see it.
Now, it'd probably call it the Gabe Dome, because he already has kind of a dome.
I'm not going to go there. Can you hear the sounds that we hear in the background?
Don't worry. I have my crew on standby with a full can of WD-40. Yeah.
Do you hear it? Can you?
Yeah,
is it on the radio? Can folks on the radio hear it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I've been trying to block it out, but...
It sounds like your folks upstairs. Never mind.
Wow.
Anyway, if you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us or you can text us, 979-693-1150. That's the Buppy's Catering hotline. Every once in a while, I do an OB-ism.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nick, tell me something, buddy. How was hosting yesterday?
It was good. I felt a little rusty because it had been a while, but I feel like I got it going after a little bit. And OB and Billy and all the guests made it easy, of course. But just want to give a quick clarification. Y'all were talking about increasing scholarships. On the handout that Trev gave out yesterday, it's 154.8 scholarship increase. So quite a substantial amount in terms of added scholarships. And
so is the 410 number correct, or did I?
Yeah, you're right on that.
Okay.
But it's just an increase in 154.8
That's
scholarships.
a lot. My goodness.
What is that, about 50% almost?
That's
maybe,
fantastic.
I don't know. I'm not good with numbers.
Matthew Dawson.
Yeah, get Dawson on it.
Dawson had a little haircut in the background. I don't know if you saw it. He looked good.
I thought maybe his brain just swelled so much.
He has not gotten a haircut.
That's not a haircut?
It's just
he said he did last week, but no,
I don't pay attention to him.
No, well,
yeah, it's the first time I've looked at him in a long time. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava Davis. Ava, get that.
AD.
Good morning.
What's up?
Good. I'm just chilling.
Yeah, chilling? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're just going to chill on the show, shall we?
Chill.
Yeah.
I'm always chilled.
It's the end of June, right? Like, there aren't that many topics. Thank you, Trev, for having that press conference.
Yeah.
Anywho.
We got about 3 weeks before, we're going to go to SEC Media Days. Then all of a sudden, we're going to have plenty of time.
Yeah, and then you start recycling the topics
yes,
again.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Anywho. Or anyway.
On3 Industry updated their 2026 SEC team recruiting rankings. A&M is at number 1. We've had 19 2026 commits so far. And number 2 is LSU, 3 Georgia, 4 Texas, and Alabama at number 5. And the list goes on, but I'm not going to read all of them for you. But we are at number 1. So
I've been privileged to see some of the things that they're doing across the street. They are so good, man. They really are. Like I haven't like. When Jimbo had his run, I did not have a front row view to what he was doing. Okay, I saw the results. They were great in names and stars, right?
Yeah.
We'll see how if this group pans out. If they all end up staying with A&M, if they can continue being a top 3 recruiting class. Right now, they're just on this heater. But they are. They just have a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what they're pitching, and I can tell that the folks that they have in town are all in. Like there's a vibe across the street. You got to make it work, though.
I think that Elko came in and brought in organization and vision, and this is part of both, right? And Jimbo, you mentioned, they had the number 1 class in 2022, and to kind of you touched on this, and then they had to change recruiting coordinators because the guy left for Oregon, and things kind of got out of hand. Because the coach wasn't, I think, on top of it the way he should have been. Well, I don't think that's ever going to be an issue with
That's not going to be an issue. And I'll go through what they've done.
Not meaning that they're going to be number 1 all the time.
No. And look, there's a long time to go. You got to go prove it on the field this year to keep these guys. But when we come back, because we're way late for a break, we'll go through what they've done since June 14th, because it's been pretty uncanny. All right, OB, let's talk about our friends at 1775.
Let's talk about them.
Okay. So, I would have gone yesterday, but they're not open. That's fine. Not open. But that's the beauty. That's, in a way, it makes you crave 1775 even more.
I'm craving it so much that we all know that our good friend Alan Cannon announced his retirement. Hey, Alan, if you're up Thursday or Friday, let me know. I'll spring. I'll buy it at 1775, because when you need to celebrate something or someone needs to be honored, what better way than going to lunch at 1775? I will honor you with barbecue. I will honor you, Alan Cannon, with that succulent brisket or those pork ribs or that jalapeno cheese sausage or even the turkey if that's the way you want to go. If you are so inclined. I'll be inclined afterwards, because I'll be inclined going, oh, that was good.
Yeah, you don't break bread there. You break the meat.
You break the meat. And then maybe if there was some bread, it'll be the pasta in the queso mac and cheese.
Oh, that's so good.
They give you some bread, too.
1775txbbq.com. You can call them up, 979-492-6241. It is what?
What? I don't know. It's
1775.
It's 1775. It's where AC. It's where we're going.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Lucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan, or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Lucci sent you by.
And we're back. It's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Big Dummy on the YouTube page said he saw me at a Mexican restaurant eating a cheap meal in Houston on Saturday. I have many cheap meals. I don't eat broccoli ice cream every day. Okay, I have many cheap meals.
The cauliflower enchilada.
Never had cauliflower enchilada. I'm not a big enchilada guy. That's not fajita guy.
That stands to reason. Because the fajitas, you can get your protein. You don't even have to.
You can go corn tortillas if you want.
You don't even have to use the corn tortilla.
Yeah, but sour cream.
Bronny, back
guacamole.
in the day, Bronny, we called him the meat man. Because we would go out to eat at a Mexican restaurant, and he would order double meat on the fajitas and say, "Don't bring anything but the meat," and he would just sit there and eat a big pile of meat.
He loves to eat meat. Yeah. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava Davis got some text messages for us.
Yes, Bosis from Katie says, "Morning, guys. Can you explain how the other sports like golf, tennis, track and field, for example, are getting money? Do those sports still have scholarships?"
Oh, yeah. Let's see if I have this information. But, yeah, all these sports are getting scholarships. All of them. Let's see. Post-settlement roster limits. So baseball's now up to 34. What were they before? 12 and a half, something
11,
like that?
11.7.
Okay. Basketball on both sides, men and women, 15 each. Equestrian, it's got 50. Football, 105. Looks like
Wait, how many for equestrian?
This is the roster limits, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, not scholarships. I'm reading roster limits. As for scholarships, excuse me, there's a lot of information on this page, if you can see. Obi, you find it. You were there at the press conference.
Equestrian, huh?
Yeah.
Equestrian scholarships are 22.
It's pretty good.
Man, that's a whole. I guess they've got it stabilized.
So yes, other sports are getting hooked up. Now, I guess that's why I wanted to make sure that we understood the distinction. There is the revenue sharing model. There is These are all different components.
Go ahead.
Yes, he's stable.
I'm stupid. Go ahead.
No, I want to keep the camera on you. I want to see how long you left.
It's maybe a sign of dementia when you laugh at your own jokes that are really bad. I'm laughing at how bad that was.
Just a mild case of mild cognitive impairment. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's the precursor. All right, Ava. Sorry. What else do you have? There's some more text messages.
Yes, let me go to them.
We got Wendy in College Station.
Wendy
Everyone
says,
knows it's Wendy.
What? Okay. Wendy in College Station says, "My concerns about corporate naming rights is the money can't go to NIL and the caps are on direct payments to athletes. Besides facilities, where will the increase of income go, and how does this result in getting better players without transferring the 12th Man Foundation to NIL powers?"
Well, the amount of money that you're going to be paid out to players is going to go up. It's not going to stay at what it is now.
Right.
So as the amount increases, probably annually, the amount of money you need to pay is going to increase.
Right.
I mean, don't be surprised if in 3 years they're paying out, $30 million plus. So you've got to find the money somewhere.
Well, you're paying your players from the past. You are paying players now. You've had to make changes. You're going to fund more scholarships. The money's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
So
that's the answer.
Let's get one more in before we hit a break.
Madden from Houston, he says, "So is A&M using $1.5 million of the $20.5 million available?"
18.5 million, 18.5. So yes, our understanding, based on the press conference yesterday, the SEC teams of the 20.5 that you're allowed are using 18.5.
Is 18.5? I thought it was 18.
Or 18. And then 2.5 goes to the SEC.
Or whatever.
Yep.
I was never completely understanding of where that extra $2.5 million goes, but it goes somewhere.
Yep. All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back. Our friend Ralph Russo.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Great guy. Wrote an article about Marcel Reed.
How about that?
Yeah.
We're going to talk. When he was down here asking questions.
He was. We're gonna talk a little bit about it. All right. And here's my take from it.
I haven't read it.
He might listen to TexAgs. It was well done. He actually has. I'll talk about it in the next slide because he talks to everybody across the street that matters. Elko, Klein, about Marcel, but it's a lot of the things we've talked about on this show that I hope. I don't know if I hope it becomes a national narrative, but don't be surprised if it starts being one of the talking points at SEC Media Days.
I'll look forward to reading that.
Yep. When insurance matters most, who's going to answer your call? That's the Rollo Insurance Group. Morgan's my guy over there, and as you know, the twins turned 17 yesterday. They started driving about 10 days ago, and I had to go through the whole process. What is it going to cost me? They found me the best insurance for them, where they're covered, where our family's covered, and of course, there's an increase in how much it's going to cost us because that's what happens when two kids that are under 25 years old start driving, right? And that's exactly what we're dealing with. And Rollo Insurance got us in the right situation for us. What you can do is reach out to them for your home, your auto, your business, your ranch insurance. Start a relationship with experts that keep you at their focus and make sure that you are educated on everything that you're paying for. The website is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. That website again, rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. Call them up, 888-44-ROLLO. That's 888-44-ROLLO. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. As I mentioned, Ralph Russo, friend of our show, used to be at the Associated Press. He's now with The Athletic. Has an article listed as a headline, Marcel Reed may be the SEC's most overlooked quarterback, but Texas A&M believes. I tried to reopen the article, but it's one of those that once you've been there once, you got to pay to see it kind of thing.
So maybe if I can find it.
I have some notes that I wrote down from it. But basically, some of the things that he gets into is that Reed lacks the hype of names like Arch and DJ Lagway, but his stats align closely with those SEC top-tier quarterbacks, which we've been saying for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We've used Lagway, OB, as kind of our benchmark. But if you look at some of those other quarterbacks in the SEC, and he goes on to talk about completion percentage, better than Lagway, 61%, efficiency rating, identical or nearly identical to Garrett Nussmeier. His efficiency rating was 142.12, and Nuss's was 142.68. His touchdown to interception ratio is 6.3, 2.5% interceptions, similar to Sellers and others. So he just kind of goes down and he starts mentioning. Is it doing the same thing to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to sell me.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to buy it. But I read it initially, so I wrote down some notes from it. But we've been talking about that on this show for a while, that like we all know that Marcel Reed has to be better this year.
Has to be good.
Right? And he's got to be better. The A&M offense it's not all on Reed. The A&M offense has to be better in these elite marquee matchups.
Mm-hmm.
They were not good enough against Notre Dame. They were not good enough against Texas. We can go into the reasons, but the bottom line, it's a results-driven business, and they weren't good enough in those games.
Right.
Okay, fine. We're talking about two teams that went deep into the playoffs, right?
One played for the national championship, one lost to the national champion in the semifinals.
Right. So, but that is all correct. We get it. It's got to be better. But if you look at his story, which again, on this show, we have discussed, right? We've discussed some of the challenges. Any backup quarterback thrust into that situation, there's not many that would have given you the results that I think Marcel gave you. But it talks a little bit about his breakout game, which versus LSU, and where he had the 62 yards and the 3 touchdowns. That people talk about that game so much because it was a marquee matchup. It was an amazing performance in the second half of that game. But people look at that as that's who he is, just a runner and not a passer. And you can go to the Florida game where he passed well. You can go to the Auburn game where he passed well.
I get why you'd say, not just you, but why people would say the LSU game was his breakout game. But I go back to the game against Florida, and the difference was he just ran more against LSU. In Florida, he had some incredible throws. Remember the touchdown pass he throws to, I'm not even talking about the one at Tyrus Allen, to Theo.
Right.
You know, I mean, he had to find the guy open and deliver it on the move, and then the touchdown pass to Cyrus Allen. The juke he made on that poor safety, guy's jockstrap was up around his helmet to get the first down that clinched and that finished it off. He played great in that game.
So it goes into the article about Colin Klein noting that the offense last year was not sexy with limited receivers, injuries at running back, but they led the SEC in scoring offense. They were number 1 in red zone scoring. Which I didn't realize that at the time.
Probably, it said scoring, not touchdowns.
Right, and tied for number 1 in turnover margin. And he goes on to say that doesn't happen if you don't have good play from your quarterback.
Yeah. I thought Marcel, you didn't mention the USC game, and I don't blame you.
292 yards passing.
And should have been over 300 and another touchdown if
Noah
catches a ball that hits him in the hands.
Yeah. So these are things that we've been saying for a while, and I believe, OB, that talking season is here. It's starting, right, with SEC Media Days, 3 weeks away?
About 3 weeks, yeah.
Right, so I think this is going to be a, I don't know about a popular narrative, but you talk about these teams so many different ways that you're going to do this 360 or a number 8 where you're going to come back around and now. Because do you remember we had somebody on the show, I think it was last week, from Saturday Down South, that thought Marcel was overrated. Mm-hmm. And when I pressed him on it, I was like, well, where is he overrated? Because Only one place that I've seen has him as the number 6 quarterback. That was Saturday down south, right? The rest of them had him anywhere between, 8 and 11?
Right.
That's where he is. And some of these numbers could tell you that that's underrating him.
Right. Look, I would, if it was me, I kind of think, I don't know, because I haven't made my list of the SEC quarterbacks. Maybe it's something I should do, like anybody cares what I think. But I would probably find Marcel somewhere around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head without putting too much thought into it.
Like today, going into the season, you'd have him at 7 or 8.
If I took the time and I'd probably put him somewhere between 7 and 8.
Yeah.
I don't know how that could be overrated or underrated if you're right in the middle on this. You just think he's going to be great or you think he's going to be terrible.
Yep.
But I'll acknowledge that I don't know which he's going to be. I think he's going to be really good. I do. But he's got to prove it. And I've said it before, I thought last year was going to be a huge year
for Connor. Yep.
And it wasn't. So just because I think he's going to have a good year, look, I've been wrong before. But I still think he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a really good year. But and the Marcel topic comes up so much that, he's the quarterback of a team, and you have to have good quarterback play in the SEC or in college football to be able to be a playoff contending team. A&M was a playoff contending team last year. We all know how November went, but they were exactly that. They were a playoff contending team. He was not good enough in the Texas game. The team wasn't good enough in the Texas game.
I'm sorry, I'd gotten a message from R.C. Slocum, and when R.C. sends me a message,
stop what you're doing. Yeah.
So you were saying that they weren't as good enough in the.
They weren't good enough in the first game and the last game of the regular season. We recognize that, but if you look at the body of work, he was excellent. And if he goes from 8 or 9 to 6, which is not a huge leap of faith, right? Like. If Marcel's one of the 6 best quarterbacks in the SEC, they will be in contention for a playoff berth and a SEC championship game berth if he's that in November. It'll be the same story as it was last year. If he's a number 6 quarterback in the league, I think they'll be in the mix.
I think that's very possible. Very possible. I still need to see the defense play better. Because I thought he was a number 6 type of quarterback against USC.
That's right.
Right? So I got to see the defense play better.
Well,
I think he's going to have more, and plus I think he's going to have more to work with this year. And he's, more experienced, all the things that come with it. But I'm with you. If you give me a Marcel as being on, I'm not even saying it has to be excellence. If he's on the verge of excellence,
look, this is not an original thought. Well, it's my thought. I've said this before. And you've heard it before, so that's why I'm going to say it again. I still believe if the defense makes 2 stops this last season, we're talking about Marcel Reed being the 6th best quarterback in the SEC right now. Okay. And he did nothing wrong on defense.
Auburn and USC?
Yes.
Yeah.
If those 2 games, the defense makes 1 more stop, and I think the defense is going to be significantly better.
They're a 10-win team.
And then but his stats stay exactly the same, OB.
Hey, I got a question for you.
I might have an answer.
I probably shouldn't even bring this up.
No, I wouldn't bring it up.
Because there was a chance to even beat South Carolina. As good as he was, did Shamar Turner make more big plays or more costly errors?
I think we remember costly errors more.
I'm not saying, I said big plays.
Yeah.
Because I think about, you're talking about, I thought they had everything going their way against South Carolina. They're going to close the half with the lead. Doesn't mean the second half wouldn't have been the same, but you're going to close the half with the lead. And then there's a late hit?
Yep.
There was a lot of those.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. I remember some of the mistakes because they were costly, right? As they all are. But he made a lot of great plays for this. And sometimes, and I think sometimes a player of his caliber, the fact that he drew so much attention, I think.
That I'll agree with.
We'll hit a break here. If your car was hit by a hailstorm, a hailstorm, there were 2 in the last 3 months, you need to reach out to Classic Collision and Restoration. Don't trust those out-of-town pop-up tents because they're gone. They're not around, and they won't stand the test of time. If you need some help with paintless dent repair from that hail damage, you need to reach out to the Classic Collision Restoration team because they can make sure that your insurance claim is taken care of. They want to keep you happy and keep the business local here in the Brazos Valley. They've been around for 25 years. Countless customers have trusted Classic Collision and Restoration to bring back their car to showroom form. Top quality auto body repair, Classic Collision and Restoration is here to help. No one in the Brazos Valley offers the same quality of service and detail that they provide, and you know how the saying goes, you get what you pay for, right? Make sure you reach out to them because they're going to give you top quality work. Doug Leopold's a great Aggie, class of 93. Reach out to him, 979-779-8399. That is 979-779-8399 or online at classiccollisionandrestoration.com. Hey everyone, David Nuño and Olin Buchanan and OB. Typically, we start off the show in this section, and we call it the Holistic Planning Cool
The cool zone, yeah. It's pretty cool.
What do we know about holistic planning?
Well, a lot of cool stuff. For instance, holistic planning can help you with your investments.
I love that.
They can help you with your taxes. So
I don't like paying taxes.
You can get that money from your investments and they keep it. They'll help you keep it away from the government.
Yep.
Not all of it, but more of it. And then they'll even help you with your estate planning. When you're old like me, you got to make sure some of that money you made is there for when you want to retire and just enjoy the rest of your life.
You want your estate to be planned, but they also do something else.
Yeah, well, if you are like, say, a sports fan and you've always wanted to...
Everybody watching us, right?
Yeah. And you want to always dream of being an owner, well, in a certain way you can because they will broker the deal for you to invest in pro sports.
Yeah, what you need to do is check out investinprosports.com. That's where you can get all the information if you want to invest in a team. I don't know what team. He'd probably try to buy the Cowboys. I try to buy a lot of the Houston teams. Whatever it may be, investinprosports.com. It is holistic planning, and we love hanging out at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. As a reminder, the final segment of the program is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150 will hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza. They've been serving Aggie Land since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. OB,
Yeah.
do you feel better or the same, indifferent about the news that you got? Not the news, but the informational session you had with Trev Alberts yesterday. About what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things that I heard, but nothing I thought was earth-shattering. I mean, we knew that they were going to give more scholarships, and you and I talked about what were the 6 sports they're going to fund, and we figured volleyball. We were thinking, was it going to be volleyball or soccer?
Yep.
And it was volleyball. But nothing else. Do they need to get more money? Yeah, we understand that. I think about the same. How about you?
I think it was good to see it on paper, right? And see some of these things that not the entire audience got to see. We've talked about a lot of these. I kind of expected this, but hearing it laid out and hearing his vision for what the future of college athletics could look like, and if A&M doesn't stay above it, they're going to fall behind. That's all comforting. I'm wondering what other ADs are saying at different institutions that we're going to be competing against.
Probably very much the same. I think the thing that I came away that meant the most to me was saying, hey, we're going to hire a guy he's an attorney.
Yeah.
And he's going to be kind of answering only to me, but in overseeing this whole NIL presence that A&M's going to be, have. So I thought that, and just the fact that when he said that about threading the needle between tradition and modernization, I'm kind of with you. He said, hey, folks,
it's coming,
and you may not feel great about it, again.
Outside of Kyle Field, what else could that mean?
I don't know. In a smaller sense, Reed Arena. Like I said, are you going to put? I see pro sports already do this, where they have a sponsor.
Yep.
Are you going to put? I always say Buc-ee's because it's such a dynamic company, and I like going there. But are you going to put a Buc-ee's patch on
Sure.
uniforms and all those kind of things?
Yeah.
And that's certain things that I haven't even thought about because I work here instead of in a more important position.
I think it's pretty important.
I'm in this chair instead of that one.
You want to switch? I had this idea. You know my idea, right?
No.
A white elephant show where we shuffle the deck and everybody gets a different role. You could end up being the lead host. You could end up being Nick Savage. You could be at the social center. Ava Davis could host the show.
I'd probably be better at all those things than the social center. I'm a pretty social guy.
Thank you, Obi.
Yeah.
When we come back on TexAgs Live, Josh Pate. Pate on the program. That's brought to you by Academy. We'll see you in a bit. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Time to talk to Josh Pate, our weekly conversation brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. We go to the Puppies Catering Hotline. We're joined by our buddy Josh. What's up, man?
I'm just hanging out, David. I just have the little countdown on my phone. Do you count down to media days or do you count down to kickoff, given the profession that you're in?
I do both. So I count down to media days, right? Like, to me, there's several like benchmarks throughout the offseason you got to get to. Spring game, right? If your school still has one. And the signing day, spring game. And then to me, it's when you have these spring meetings, it's really the summer meetings, because it happens in May, in my opinion. And then you have SEC Media Days. But SEC Media Days is that point where you turn the page, you're like, all right, now it's for real hot sports take season.
Yeah, you got to figure out, if you're a fan, you got to figure out, like, how serious are you? Because if you're just, I'm not going to call you a casual, but if you're a more passive fan, like a level 2 fan, media days don't matter to you. So you're just counting down to kickoff. I remember growing up, obviously, I've long since been in the tier 1 category. So I know the lineup at media days by now. If I'm in high school, if I'm in middle school, I already know who's speaking at 9 a.m. on the Wednesday of media days. So that's how like chomping at the bit I used to be to get anything other than a preview magazine by this point.
Josh, I have my boys turned 17 yesterday. I have twin boys that turned 17. And just hanging out with them and their friends, I have noticed that kids today watch sports differently than we did, okay? My boys will watch an A&M football game with me. Well, actually, no, I'm working. An A&M basketball game when I'm sometimes watching from home. They'll watch the entire thing with me. And they'll watch an entire soccer game. But a lot of times, they get their game experience through social media, right? So I feel like a lot of the younger fans are losing the nuance of what happens in the game. If you go to Kyle Field, you're going to be there the entire time. It's going to be electric. But I'm just talking about maybe those casuals you were talking about, how they consume games. Have you noticed that there's kind of been a loss of what really happened in this highlight culture that started in the 90s with SportsCenter, don't get me wrong, but now with social media, it really has become highlight culture?
Yeah, this is never going to affect football like it's affected baseball. The entire phenomenon of the Savannah Bananas, I believe, was born through this. Mm-hmm. I believe was born through highlight culture, started with SportsCenter culture, evolved into social media highlight culture, which equals I'm not going to watch a 2-3 hour baseball game that's game 101 of 162 when I can just see the highlights. But that becomes an entire generation grows up on highlights, and that's their concept and impression of baseball. And so someone who is very business-minded looks and says, well, if that is an entire generation's idea of baseball, and also we've got elements of, let's say, pro wrestling, and we've got elements of baseball, and we got elements of Harlem Globetrotters. If that's what's clicking, let's try this concept out. And now they're selling out baseball. They're selling out football stadiums to play a version of baseball that would not have been able to exist 25 or 30 years ago. This is not me passing judgment on whether that's a bad or good thing. It just is a thing. And I think, yeah, it affects football, David, but it really has affected baseball.
Yeah, it's, to me, like for what we do for a living, I can tell if I discuss something and I didn't watch every pitch, right? Yep. If I'm looking at a box score, if I am just basing it on tweets about a game, like there's only so much time to watch every SEC. I think SEC football is different because there's 8 games typically you're paying attention to, non-conference more. But like when it comes to everything else that we kind of have to talk about, it becomes very difficult. And I can tell myself when discussing it, I don't know the emotion, the memory attached to that moment unless I watch it. And hopefully I watched it live.
Yeah, that's me. Now here's what else you have to guard against. So I feel the same way you just described. I think you also have to guard against this thing. I did it the other day, ironically, during the College World Series, the elimination game, when Coastal Carolina's head coach got thrown out of the game. I was not watching that live. So I was coming out of church, had gone to the gym, about to go into the office to do the show. And I think I was leaving the gym, and I looked, and about 10 minutes prior, it had all happened. Mm-hmm. already you look at it, and since I feel strongly about that topic, I feel moved to make a statement. And so I did. I saw little snippets of it. So I had seen at least something that happened, but I hadn't seen the entire lead up. I didn't know whether the guy had been warned multiple times. I'm not going to lie and say I had watched every pitch of every inning prior to that, but I put something out, and then I was driving into the office, which is not a long drive from where I work out. And I was thinking to myself, hold up, you hypocrite. I didn't look in the mirror per se, but I said, you haven't even been watching that full game, and you just commented on it. And it's the same thing you get mad at other people for doing. And then my but was, but that's in football. I get mad in football. Do whatever you want to in baseball. That's how I explained it away. So I don't want any blame, David. I just want credit. That's all I want.
Did your opinion change after a little more time of that whole incident? Because I look at that coach, and I forget his name at the moment. I should remember it. He's awesome. But I'm looking at how he handled that press conference, the way he's handled other moments. I'm like, I could play for that dude.
Yeah. No, mine has not changed. So the reason I did feel comfortable enough running with it is, number one, the umpire's name was Angel, and I've never known a great umpire whose name is Angel at any level. And secondly, I felt pretty confident. Sometimes you feel in looking at some of the people who are saying some of the things, like there are people I respect, okay? If 5 of them are in lockstep agreement on a strongly held opinion about a sporting event, I could pretty well guarantee you I'm going to agree with them. Now, I'm not going to agree with them all the time on everything, but if 5 of them have a visceral reaction that's all in unison, I'm probably going to agree with that. And then, of course, I've long had a problem in sports, but especially in baseball, with this, for lack of a better term, this God complex sometimes that umpires get. And I think it bleeds down from the major league level because that's the strongest union that any group of officials has in any sport is Major League Baseball umpires. And they've always carried themselves as untouchable. I always thought, even when I was a kid, David, I always thought it's so weird that there are multiple major league umpires that have nicknames. I would watch a Braves game on a Tuesday night, and Skip Carey would be reading the starting lineups for each team, and then he'd show you the home plate umpire, first base, second base, third base, and like Cowboy Joe West is behind the plate tonight. Why would an umpire ever have a nickname? Well, it's because they're all around for 50 years because you can't get rid of them. And number 2, because they make sure they're part of the show, which shouldn't be the case, but it is. So then that bleeds down into the college ranks, and it kind of culminates with an elimination game, and guy disagreed on balls and strikes. You're out of here. Why? Well, you can't question me. It's the World Series for me too, bro. You can't question me. Just terrible. So no, I don't regret posting it. I don't regret a thing I said.
Kevin Schnall, by the way, is the Coastal Carolina head coach. So a few weeks back, we were discussing a narrative out there that has the SEC taken a step back, okay? And now that baseball's over, we've got national championships in softball, swimming and diving, women's gymnastics, men's track, women's tennis, baseball, softball, men's basketball, right? They've all won national championships. Football came close. They weren't close enough, but they came close. The SEC is just fine, Josh, right?
Well, it's the most dominant conference in collegiate athletics. Has been for quite a while, continues to be. I think a lot of people who talk about that topic are solely referencing football. Even though they'll talk about athletics at large, they're talking about football. And I come at that from the angle that I don't really hear basketball people talk like that all that much. When it comes tournament selection time, you may be talking about how many bids a league deserves, but that's very seasonal to me. I don't hear many college hoops fans in September kind of pounding the chest about conference superiority. That's mainly in the world of football. So I say that to say, if the SEC doesn't win the national title in football this year, you'll have people look you dead in the eye and say none of the rest of that stuff matters. And in relation to football, okay, it doesn't. But just say football then. And don't speak in totality, because then my boy Nuño is going to throw 37 things in your face accurately, as he just did. And what are you going to do about it? You're going to duck like the dude in the Matrix, and then you're going to say, well, yeah, but what about football? You lost in overtime of a playoff game again. You guys suck. Oh, cool. By what standard exactly? Oh, by the SEC's previous standard. Well, that's pretty convenient that you're judging the conference against the conference, and you're judging them against a standard no one else has even come close to touching in the history of this game.
Yesterday, Trev Alberts, A&M's AD, had a press conference and kind of laying out the framework for the future of A&M sports, and went through the 410 scholarships that are being funded. Not where the dollars are going to go, but the 6 programs that are going to be funded. And he said that this is our time, for A&M to really position themselves above the fray, above the rest of the pack. Do you believe that, like A&M as an institution, in football in particular, which is your expertise, do you think that A&M has put themselves in a position to kind of be above some of those other programs that historically, I think they all have some money, but it's a different level of resource and a different level of looking at the future?
I'll look at it a little bit differently. The short answer to your question is, yeah, probably. They probably have positioned themselves that way. You've probably embarked upon an era that is uniquely shaped for Texas A&M to weaponize what Texas A&M is. Texas A&M has many, many layers baked into the identity of the program, the culture overall, that could make it a monster. So, yeah, all that's true. Wouldn't matter if you didn't have the right head coach. It's all a moot point if you don't have the right head coach. So the first thing they did to do what he said, which is to place them above, is hire Mike Elko. Hire a guy, in other words, where you don't have to depend on out-resourcing people. Even though you can, that's not what you're depending on. All you really need to do is you need to be even. You need to make sure there's no one far ahead of you. Just be even. Because if you can look to your left and right and see the folks you're competing against, you trust internally that you can out-develop them. You can out-evaluate if need be, but you can out-execute them more times than not on game day. That's what I trust about Mike Elko. I told you that the week he got hired. And there was very little guesswork in that. I know you guys didn't have a ton of doubt about it, but I just remember the overwhelming feedback I got about the guy from people who had faced him when he was at Duke. And that was a short time, but they said, it's just really amazing to me that everybody's talking about like Kalen DeBoer at Alabama with good reason, but so much of the shine in that sort of hiring cycle went to Saban's out, DeBoer's in, and no one was paying attention to Elko, and they kept saying, you wait and you see the evaluation and development pieces. Everyone's talking about NIL and spending and all that, but that'll eventually settle down a little bit, and it's gonna circle back around to the things that matter most, which are good evaluations, developing relationships and recruiting, but then signing and developing guys, and that's where Mike Elko will shine. So if all else is at least equal, David, if all else is at least equal, and it may be better than equal, but if it's at least equal, that's why I trust what Trev Alberts said. But I trust it because of the hire they made, and then everything else sort of works downstream of that.
100% agree with you, and it's twofold to that, though, right? I think you have to have the right coach, and you have to have the right quarterback, right? And the right quarterback doesn't have to be the best quarterback. Will Howard, last year, was not the best quarterback in college football. He was the right quarterback for that system, especially late.
That is something that I think could play out again this year, conditionally, just across the country. I'm not even talking about A&M, but the concept of, in this era, the portal era, we do see a lot of movement at that position. Therefore, you see more guys at a second or third stop than you used to see. Well, what that does, sort of as an unintended consequence, is it measures staffs against each other. If I watch Will Howard play for you for 3 years, and this was his maximum potential, so to speak, then he comes to me and he's 20% better, well, what does it say about you? I'm not casting aspersions on Kansas State. I'm speaking generically. What if Carson Beck just lights it up at Miami this year? I don't know what that says about Mike Bobo or what it says about Georgia or whatnot. So I do think also, though, you fast forward at any given period, you fast forward 5 years down the road, and everything about your roster would be crystal clear. Because by 5 years from now, either your results or the NFL draft and NFL production or a combination of all of that will tell the entire story of what you have on your roster 5 years prior. Well, we don't get the benefit of looking into that crystal ball. But what always amazes me is look at teams that win at a high level in college hit the fast forward button 5 years. The teams that won, and then you look back in retrospect and you realize they were doing it without a future all-pro at this position or that position, especially quarterback. That to me is the most under talked about, underwritten about impressive part of this sport. Everyone just looks at a winner as a winner. Well, all due respect to LSU 2019, you got Joe Burrow at quarterback. Okay, that's amazing. But what if you rewind a few years and you had like Jake Coker at quarterback and you won? Well, that to me is the trophy looks the same, but it's like it's a little different story. And so I wonder what 2030 will say about this year's Texas A&M team.
Talking to Josh Pate here on TexAgs Live. Josh, let's talk about one of the you got a question on your show about wild card teams that could make the postseason. And I kind of want to go through like how you evaluated that, because when we talk about a wild card team, you're not talking about the gimmies, right? You're not talking about the Georgias and Texases that are expected. I think you said what the four best in the SEC, or that's a kind of a different tier. It would be that next level, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And A&M and Oklahoma were the leaders in that next section.
Yeah, I looked at the odds at FanDuel. I took the top 5 out. A viewer had asked me, how deep is this league of teams that, if everything goes right, could win it? And so Oklahoma was one. And I think it's really hard to do this apples to apples because not everyone plays the same schedule. But Oklahoma, I think they are viewed as a bad team that's trying to rebound. And I think it's a bad QB offensive coordinator situation that's trying to rebound. And neither is good, but the latter's a lot easier to do this and fix if you go get a quarterback offensive coordinator combo, which they did, and I think he'll be effective there. They'll be effective there. But then outside of that, okay, if we look at Auburn, every spring and summer, David, there is the propensity, I've fallen victim to this many times, so I speak from personal experience, to look at the past year and to find the team that had terrible turnover margin luck and say, if that team just flips their turnover margin and nothing else, then they'll be good this year, which is true. However, sometimes the turnover margin is not merely luck. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And with Auburn last year, I went back and watched several of their games the other day in preparation for being able to talk about this for the next few months. It wasn't bad luck. They had a skill in turning the ball over. So you bring in a turnover-prone quarterback in Jackson Arnold, who was a former 5-star guy, former Elite 11 MVP, but I think those accolades fade the more and more we have a sample size of you at the college level. And then you plug him into an offense that historically, even when it's working, Hugh Freeze's offenses have had a higher turnover rate that I don't know if double negative doesn't always equal a positive there. But if somehow it just works there, they've got the talent roster that gives them a puncher's chance of winning the SEC. I went with A&M, absolutely went with A&M, because I think if A&M plays the style of football that they're trying to play, there's a lot less variance in the outcome. Like if that ground game is what it should be, if the defensive elevation is what it should be, given the insane focus on that entire side of the ball, there shouldn't be wild differences in Texas A&M results and outcomes. Now, what you will have is you'll have a ton of close games. So you'll have a ton of one possession here and there. And I think probably more than the turnover margin, which everyone cares about, the one possession game outcome margin, A&M, the difference in being +3 and -3 in that category is the difference in playing in Atlanta and 7-5, 8-4.
Yeah, and one of the things that you've said in this interview, you've said before, is how much you trust what Coach Elko is going to do from a development standpoint. So going back to that comment, all the focus on the defense, I know I got to see it to believe it, but I have so much faith that the defense is going to be better. And you can't copy and paste one season to the next, right? The results from last year do not apply to this year. That being said, if you just tell me that Coach Elko is putting his fingers on this defense and some of the additions that they've made from a roster perspective, I know they lost dudes on the defensive line. I feel like those one possession games are going to, November's going to feel different. That's what I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I trust the sum of incremental additions. I trust the collective sum of incremental progress. There's no one guy that's going to go from nearly being benched to being a Thorpe Award winner or anything like that. And maybe they will, but I don't count on that. I just count on the collective performing a little bit better per position group than they did last year. It's probably not even something that your eyes can see any given series. It's just you get off the field on third down a few times and you find yourself at halftime where, you know, you're leading 17-6, and you find yourself saying, this is just not the way it would have been. That game would not have gone this way last year, especially the second half of last year. That is the Elko effect. If it plays out that way, that would be the Mike Elko effect.
Let me close out with this. A couple teams that A&M is going to play: Missouri on the road, South Carolina at home. Why are you a little iffy on them in their postseason aspirations?
So I'm iffy on Missouri because I don't blindly trust that they answered quarterback. I do trust that if Bo Pribula is going to be a good quarterback, he's in a great spot. So it's not me doubting, it's me questioning. Mm-hmm. I view that in two different compartments. And then you mentioned South Carolina, right?
Yes, sir.
South Carolina, people are talking about them like it's tennis, where it's a one-man deal. If it was a one-man deal, if it was Lenora Sellers versus, then I'd have them as a national championship contender. It's the same thing with Carolina as it is with Missouri. It's not me doubting. It's me questioning, how deep are they going to be at receiver? Is their tailback situation settled? They still got a guy they're trying to get eligible right now. So many guys they sent in the NFL draft from the defensive side that history tells me I cannot blindly trust South Carolina to backfill like Georgia does or like Ohio State does. So my only point is an alarming amount of the college football public is talking about South Carolina like that is assumed. And I don't just assume it. That's all I've said.
Good stuff, Josh. I appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir.
Later, man. Josh Pate on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with an open segment. Then Matthew and Luke will give us Ags in the Pro. We'll have to talk about AC Fresh. But right now we're talking about Aggieland hydration and injectables. When you need to feel better, you need to reach out to these folks. If you're not feeling well, you've been partying, whatever it may be, let them take care of you. They're Aggie owned and operated. They're a mobile IV hydration company that started just about a year ago, and their owners, Sheldon and Danny, are here to serve Bryan College Station with their awesome IV hydration. They have Botox options. They have weight loss options as well. And if you're looking for a quick boost of hydration or dehydration preventative, they can tailor a cocktail specific to your needs. So many of you went to Troubadour. You saw them there. They were helping people out. So to help them feel better at that moment, and also to let them make sure that if they're going to keep partying, they have the necessary fluids on them. Their mission is to bring a more personalized and accessible wellness option to all the clientele here in the Brazos Valley. If you want to book an appointment or you want to inquire about their services, you can call them or you can text them. 979-217-1561. That is 979-217-1561. It is Aggieland Hydration and Injectables. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. I want to go back to something that came up during the Pate interview, and Nick, help me out with this, and Ava, you too. Like, how do you consume sports? Nick, you work in the business, right? You have to talk about, like, when you do play-by-play, you have to do a lot of research. But I guess what I'm a long way of getting to, like, have you noticed what I would talked about? Like, this has become a highlight culture, and the younger you are, I don't know if you have the attention span to watch a 2 or 3 hour game.
Yeah, 100%. And the first thing that I think of is if you know, he mentioned the MLB. That's a perfect example to me. If you open the MLB app, they don't have like game recap. They still put out like highlight clips, but now they really emphasize like game stories, almost like an Instagram story where you just click through it just to get the quick hitters, and you can, I guess, get the highlights in 30 seconds or less and figure out what happened. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to, I don't know. MLB baseball has gotten good about getting their games around 2.5 hours or so. But, I mean, how many people, again, I always mention, other than Richard Zane, watch every single game all the way through? He's watching every Dodgers game all the way through, but I'm definitely not watching every Astros game all the way through.
Well, I'm not either. And I guess that's my point, is that I think, you know, I use the comparison or I try to, like, all the tabs that I have open for my show, right? I feel like that's how humans live their life now. So, for instance, my wife can watch a show with me and be on her phone. It drives me freaking bananas. Like, I'm like, get off your phone, bro. She's like, bro, I don't have to. But, like, and I think that's how a lot of people are today wired, right? They're doing multiple things. They're listening to a podcast while they're working out. I'm guilty. While they're having a conversation with Billy about work. Like, we have so many different things that I think we lose sometimes the nuance of the sport that we're watching, right? So to me, there's an emotion attached to a moment, which then when if you are a box score watcher, you can't really talk, like, yeah, you understand that there was a sac fly, but you didn't understand the emotions behind it and the 2 pitches beforehand.
Yeah, or
Follow
how
me?
close the play at the plate was or stuff like that. You lose a lot of that intensity. I get what you're saying. And I guess even a little bit deeper than that, I find myself watching multiple things at once on my TV because I have the option to, you know, multi-box or whatever. So it's not even just watching one sporting event at a time anymore. I'm watching baseball here, golf's on there, a race is on there. So it's like you got to, I don't know. I'm guilty of that too. To me, that's the equivalent of having one game on and looking at something on your phone. You know what I mean?
Ava at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, when you watch games or keeping up with sports, when your friends are doing it, do you see what I'm getting at? Like, do your peers watch the entire thing, or is it more like, I get my updates on Twitter, I'm good?
Yeah, I think it's more of that. You have those few people who are fully like
locked in
watching the full game. But other than that, like those few people, like they're just have it on in the background or just keeping up on Twitter or TikTok and stuff like that. And I'm guilty of it too.
Yep.
Especially, there's just a big difference. Like I'm probably only fully gonna sit down and watch a game if I'm there in person. Like I don't know.
I remember when the Mavs won, was it the 2010 NBA final? There wasn't a second of that season that I missed. I watched every second of it, right? Like
that's how you and me are with every A&M sporting event.
Right.
Like we watch every second of every football game, watch every second of every A&M basketball game, try to watch every pitch of every A&M baseball game. Miss a few, obviously, but I feel like because that's our job, right?
But I'm guilty of it too, though, Nick. I guess that was my point. Like the NBA finals that I was interested in for multiple reasons. I like basketball. I love to watch basketball. I didn't see when Halliburton got hurt. I saw it on Twitter. And then I went back and I rewound to watch that moment happen. I don't have the same attachment to that moment had I had it watching it in real time. I got a highlight. I saw a tweet about it. Oh, what happened? And then I go. And I think we're missing, and I'm not trying to get on my, I'm not trying to preach to you all how to watch sports. It's just, we're talking about the evolution of sports with college athletics. I think the same thing can be said about the evolution of how we consume everything. I also think this is a hot sports take. I don't feel that I recall. Do you watch shows? Do you binge watch shows, Nick?
Ever? I do not. No,
I
never.
didn't think you're
like
not.
Never.
Ava, do you? I need somebody who binge watches shows to kind of understand what I'm talking about. Our audience can text in the show. and tell me. When I watch a show back to back to back to back, and let's say I binge watch, let me use Breaking Bad. I took my time with Breaking Bad, but Breaking Bad, I binge watch over a 3-week period. I don't absorb the information the way I did when it was a 12-week, and each week I was like thinking about the next episode. Like when you have the ability, and it's awesome, right? Because you can make a whole evening. I remember my wife and I would watch these shows and be 3 or 4 in an evening, and it was a great experience. But I'm talking about the part that I can recall and go straight to. It's not the same when you're taking in multiple hours of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those big moments, I guess, lose a little luster when you're 3 episodes away in a matter of, a couple hours. So I get what you're saying.
When they end on a cliffhanger, I got to watch the next episode.
Yeah,
Sweetie,
exactly.
It's 3 a.m. Too bad. I got to know.
The only show I've ever done that with is Yellowstone, but
so good. Although it got quirky at times.
They fell off.
Hot sports take. 1923 was the best.
Didn't watch it. Not going to.
So good. Why? You're anti Han Solo?
Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
I'm more pro Indiana Jones.
Those movies.
Whoa, not an India. Okay.
I mean,
it
was cool. Whatever. When he bites the heart or whatever he did, yeah, it was cool.
He didn't do that.
Did he pull out a heart or something in the first one? Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Second one. Yeah, second one.
Second one. Temple of Doom.
Yes.
See, I know my stuff. We'll come back with a couple knuckleheads and get our update on Alex Caruso, AC Law, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and anything else happening in Ags and the pros with Luke and Dawson. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. If you're looking for a selection that's not going to break the bank, you want to make sure you get a great selection, you want to make sure you get great pricing and great trade-in value, you got to go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Their inventory is constantly changing and evolving and growing. That's what they do. The real deal here is, though, they're south of those big city prices. No dealer add-ons. What you see is what you pay. Locally owned, Aggie alumni team, they're ready to roll out the red carpet for you, and they will bring you value. Every purchase of a vehicle comes with a free oil change for life. That's thousands of dollars in savings, and their pre-owned inventory is moving quickly, which means you get top dollar for your trade-in. Remember, it's about a 15-minute drive. We're talking the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot. And you do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Why do you laugh right when we start the segment?
I just saw how stupid,
ridiculous you look. Yeah, it's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. I'm hanging out at the Holistic Planning Cool Zone with
some cool guys,
a couple knuckleheads paying tribute to AC Fresh. Before we get into stuff, okay? Did you hear the end of my last segment?
I did not. I apologize.
Okay. I think of you two. Did you hear it?
I heard you talking about Yellowstone and movies and Han
That's not what I'm
Solo
talking about.
and Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Is that what we want to talk about today?
I know how you watch sports. I know how you watch sports, right? You guys watch every second of the stuff you care about.
Sure.
Do your peers do the same thing, or are they highlight Twitter follows?
I've got a couple people that are just as locked in as I am, but it's few and far between.
So my point of the last segment was, I think your generation is more highlight.
How do you feel about NFL Red Zone?
I love it.
It's awesome. But that's like all highlights, right?
It is
You're getting
all
like
highlights.
the best moments, but you're consuming a lot of it. So you would consider yourself like, I don't think like a casual fan is getting NFL Red Zone, but yet it's all highlights.
So this is how I look at it. I can separate the two.
Sure.
When it comes to a team that I care about, I got to watch every second. When it comes to like storylines in the league, I don't need to watch every second of what happens with the Cowboys, what happens with the Eagles, what happens with. Are you a Lions fan?
Giants.
A Giants fan.
Thanks
sorry.
for publicizing that.
Chicago Bears. I watched a lot of the '85 Bears, by the way. That shows how.
He was in high school.
I really wish I did. Best year I got as a Bears fan was watching Jay Cutler break his thumb in the NFC Championship.
That was your favorite thing?
That's the best moment. I mean, that's the best season I've had as a Bears fan in my lifetime. Well, I guess 06 Super Bowl, but I was too young for that. So is that fair?
That is fair. All right, gentlemen. Aggies in the NFL, take it away. Or Aggies in the pros.
Well, I mean, but we better start.
Why is it so awkward?
Basketball.
We better start with the biggest pro that arguably, well, Mike Evans might have a claim to this one, but arguably the greatest active Aggie in the pro, you could argue. Alex Caruso has a. Where did Matthew just go?
Ready for this closeout right here? This is his closeout.
Wait, hold on. Do it again. The camera. This is the Caruso level defense.
This is Caruso closeout.
There you go. That's what he was doing a lot of in Game 7 to help the Thunder win.
Oh, my God.
To help the Thunder beat the Pacers in Game 7 to win his second NBA championship.
Get up on the block, please.
So Alex Caruso was not the only AC that is on the Thunder and that won a ring. How about AC Law, the director of amateur scouting for the Oklahoma City Thunder? He's also going to get a ring. So two Aggie legends helping the Oklahoma City Thunder take home an NBA title. Alex Caruso is now the third active player to win multiple NBA championships in the last 6 years. The other two are?
LeBron James?
Nope.
Pretty much.
What'd you say? Active?
Active NBA players to have 2 rings in the last 6 years.
Oh, last 6 years. Okay. Tell me. Who are they?
Drew Holiday and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yeah, I would have never guessed
And
that.
Alex Caruso is now the third.
I thought you said multiple championships, and that'll be Kevin Durant pretty soon with the Rockets. Sorry, go
okay,
ahead.
whatever. Mavs are winning it next year. We don't need to debate this.
Either one.
He's now a 2020 NBA champion, 2023 All-Defensive First Team, 2024 All-Defensive Second Team, 2024 NBA All-Hustle Award winner, and now a 2025 NBA champion. So quite the career Alex Caruso is having. How about this little interesting nugget that I found? March 20th, 2016. Does anyone remember what that day was?
No.
That was when
Iowa?
Texas A&M made that miraculous comeback against Northern Iowa. Anyone remember where that game was played?
Oklahoma City.
The Paycom Center at Oklahoma City. Anyone remember where Alex Caruso just won an NBA title?
No, I don't remember.
The Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. So for whatever reason, whenever Alex Caruso was playing there, great things happen. So shout out to that stat of Alex Caruso at the Paycom Center.
Why are you looking at me directly? Like, it's a very intimate
Because
conversation.
He has to convince you.
Yeah, I
of
have to
everything.
convince you that that's
I
real.
want you to have that same passion towards our audience. They love you.
No, but I think they agree with what he's saying.
Okay.
I don't know that you agree with what he's saying.
I don't know if I like your tone.
Because our audience follows me on Twitter. They already saw that stat. I never saw you like or retweet, so I just had to make sure you
I
saw
went
that
on social
stat.
media this week. But Matthew, can I tell you something real quick?
Yeah,
your
you can tell me
your
something.
defense
Sure.
a moment ago, I enjoyed that.
God.
Thank
you.
That's what high level.
I thought you were
defense
about to
looks
like diss me for a second. I'm like, man, you haven't played me in basketball. I'll close you up.
You're doing it yourself on camera, but I love your defense. Go ahead.
I've got a quote about Alex Caruso, what he said post-game about his journey from going undrafted to the G League and now to a 2-time NBA champ. He said, it's been unpredictable. There's been a lot of ups and downs. I've found success, failures, and all that stuff along the way. Everyone supported me and kept me focused. So very humble in his accomplishment.
We got to get him back on the show.
We do. I will actually shave my head and wear the same outfit to go full bald mamba if Alex Caruso comes on any piece of TexAgs content.
Are you serious?
No. Like,
Dead serious.
David, he is not kidding. I've seen this happen before. Luke, when he talks about shaving his head, like,
I'm for real.
He has no shame bone.
So I know we have contact for him. I believe Nick does. We can make this happen.
Alex, if you're watching this, I've DM'd you a couple times on the TexAgs Instagram to get you on the Read Report. But if the Read Report is not your level, we can have you on TexAgs Live, which is way bigger than my little Read Report podcast. So whatever, if you want to make it happen, I will shave my head.
I don't know that we've ever had 2 bald guys on set at the same time. That would be
Bronny and, yeah, that's about it.
Well, that'd be awesome. I can't wait for that. But I can talk to you about some softball.
Awkward transitions. We're good at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, really awkward transition. But Emily Kennedy balling out. 12 appearances for her. 4 appearances, 12 innings pitched. She's averaging a little bit over a 4 ERA, but she is pitching for the best team in the AUSL right now, the Bandits at 9-3. So
I'm a big Bandits fan.
I'm a huge Bandits. That's my team.
We're head Bandits fans.
Yeah, that's my team.
Yeah, that's my team as well. So from a softball angle, she's killing it.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I mean, Jashawn Corbin, how about former Texas A&M running back, getting signed by the Atlanta Falcons? San Antonio Brahmas legend. Fortunately, they lost my fandom in favor of the the Memphis.
You don't know
fighting,
the name of the teams, do you?
It's the fighting
the
Jim
Showrunners
Turners.
or something,
It's
right?
the fighting Jim Turners.
The Showboats.
Showboats.
But yeah, he gets signed by the Falcons. They released Jace McClellan, former 6th-round pick out of Alabama. He's going to be playing for the Falcons. We'll see if he finds himself getting some meaningful carries in some games.
We got to get Coach Turner back in studio.
We do.
Yeah. We could actually have him in a moment's notice if you want to see our impression.
Yeah, show me.
There we go. Coach Turner.
You need the voice, though. You need the voice.
Yeah. Jay, how about Jacob Palish getting called up to the White Sox? That's our final.
Okay, tell me more.
Aggie in the he got called up to the White Sox. He made his MLB debut earlier this weekend.
They gave up some runs, but what's important was that
he's in the show.
He's in the show.
He's in the Carew show.
Like
what a way to cap it off.
Sometimes I wonder if you know how cringy it gets.
I think we have different definitions of cringy. You say cringy, I say funny and entertaining.
Look, Luke is wearing something that he tied around his head, and I'm wearing his twin sister's headband. So whatever you say can't hurt our feelings, David.
Thank you, Danielson. Appreciate you both. All right. We'll hit a break here. When we come back, anything to get back on track. Ground shuttle time. They offer frequent and reliable shuttles from Bryan College Station to George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Commute in comfort with luxury shuttles, reclining seats, and power outlets. You can enjoy the ride. You can catch up on work emails. You can just enjoy not having to worry about the traffic and the construction all over Bush. There was one time in particular, my daughter will remind me often, is, Dad, we should have gotten a ride because all the construction and we were almost late for our flight to Seattle. Yeah, I know, sweetie. It was my mistake. We should have done ground shuttle. You should do it as well. They have 9 shuttle times on weekdays every hour and a half, and they have 5 shuttle times on the weekends every 2.5 hours. Excellent for business travelers, commuters, and, of course, students trying to get back home for 4th of July, whatever it may be. And also, they have charter service that goes anywhere in Texas. They can seat up to 14 passengers. The website, groundshuttle.com. That website again, groundshuttle.com. Reach out to them. Let them book your next shuttle online at groundshuttle.com. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Ava Davis got some news for us. Ava?
Yes, the 2026 edge defender Samu Mawala committed to Texas A&M in October, but he was still being pursued by UCLA, Washington, Texas, Tennessee because of his talents. But over the weekend, he came back for his official visit to College Station, and he confirmed that A&M is where he wants to be. He says, the SEC, the best of the best play there. I just want to go over there and compete. It's the culture. It's a winning culture. It's top notch.
I love it. A bunch of guys shutting down their recruitments. They're locked in with Texas A&M. I understand that we got a little baseball news in the hour.
Yes, just about 30 minutes ago, Zane Becker committed to A&M baseball. He has entered the transfer portal from the University of Arkansas. He has 3 years of eligibility. He's a catcher. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. He says he's excited to be here.
Played in 20 games last year for Arkansas, 31 at-bats. If you are a premium subscriber, go to the our thread there on the 2025 baseball transfer portal thread, and Bronny's got some analysis on there. But catchers entering, I'll just read you a little bit of what he says. Catchers entering next season, Bear Harrison, Zane Becker, Luke Billings, solid group. And so another really good addition to Coach Early and what he's trying to do. And so that was one of the positions that Bronny has talked about quite a bit on this thread. So you'll certainly want to check it out. Ava, what else?
Billy Lucci reposted yesterday on Twitter Avery Morco's tweet that he said, big news coming Wednesday at 1 p.m. Avery is an offensive tackle, class of 2026. He's 6'6", 290 pounds from Ridgepoint High School in Missouri City, Texas. 24/7 Sports says that he's interested in A&M, TCU, and SMU.
All right, and I didn't pay off my tease earlier when we had OB in studio. I wanted to kind of go through what they've done in the last 10 days. So that he's going to do this on Thursday, is that right?
Wednesday,
tomorrow. Okay. So in the last 10 days, on June 14th, A&M got a commitment from Caden Johnson, the athlete from Missouri City, from Marshall, and I know that Bronny had their head coach on the program recently, Samuel Rosenborough. That was on Monday, June the 16th. It feels like a long time ago, guys. That was just a little bit over a week ago, the Clearwater offensive lineman. Then the very next day, running back KJ Edwards from Carthage was added to the group. Okay, that was just a week ago today. And since that point, they added Brandon Arrington from California. I got to speak to he and his family over the weekend. Great family. They're really locked in when it comes to A&M. And I can say that because I talked to him about it. Like they knew. Brandon said he knew the first time he got on campus that this is where he wanted to go, and he is now part of that group. And then over the weekend on the 22nd, the Tristan Givens commitment. So that's just what they've done from June 14th through the 22nd. If they continue to add folks and good times are rolling, imagine what that could look like. So what an amazing class. Now, I know many of you at home are saying, yeah, but what? What are you going to do with it? And that's exactly the case. I have a lot more faith in where they're going now. I do. Because I think of the culture, the commitment level, the buy-in, and just the structure around. I think it's going to be look, they got to keep these guys, a long way to go. But we can only talk about the here and now, and the here and now things are good. Things are cooking for Coach Elko and company. All right, hour number 3 of the show. Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, going to join us. He's covered Vandy for years, but he's got a SEC perspective that I think we're really going to enjoy. We'll talk to him. And then one of the teams that Josh Pate talked about earlier, Missouri, we're going to talk to one of their insiders, Nate Edwards, and get his thoughts on what is happening with Missouri. Are they a team that's going to win 10 games again? What's the situation at quarterback? What's the situation at running back? All that and more. You are listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. And we're back. It is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. Chris Lee, Southeastern 16, joining us to talk all things SEC. Chris, what's up, buddy?
David, good morning.
How are you, sir?
Doing well. It is a busy time. We have just wrapped up baseball and getting full board into, obviously, media days coming in a couple weeks and still baseball stuff going on with the portal and the draft coming up. That's turned into a year-round sport. But it's look, we're in the SEC now. There's never a dull moment. There's almost never downtime. And I guess this is about as close as we get, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked to Josh Pate earlier. I'm going to ask you a similar question it's not even a question. It's kind of just the perception that the SEC was somewhat down. Comes from football not winning a national championship the last couple of years. But they won a national championship in basketball where people were like, they've got to do it this year with all these 14 teams getting in. Baseball wins it again. Softball wins it. You go track and field. Like, you go all across the board, and the SEC is winning national championships. So, no, the SEC is not down. Maybe in football it hasn't been their year, but they've been right there.
Yeah, I just think we're in an era across college sports where parity rules in a way that it never has. And I always use this analogy, David. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever Urban Meyer was at the height of his thing at Florida, it was like, can anybody beat Florida? That was your question. And then it became, can anybody beat Alabama? Maybe pockets of, can anybody beat LSU? And then it was, can anybody beat Georgia? And those were like the only questions we had a lot of the college football season, right? Now it's like, which of these number of teams can win it? And like last year in the college football playoff, Ohio State was an 8 seed and won it. And look, I think that was a misseeding. We know how the buys affected that. But my point is, there's just so much parity at the top now. Instead of, are you going to take this one team or are you going to take the field? I feel like college sports have gone more in that direction, especially in football. It's just a different time, and maybe we've had a paradigm shift that we're still in the middle of digesting. But yeah, the SEC still did pretty well in the end in all of those.
Chris, I think we're in an interesting time with SEC football that, like, you look through 1 through 16, and I don't know if there's a clear-cut, guaranteed, I don't have many questions about this team, right? Like Georgia, I got questions. I think they're Georgia, so they'll be fine. Texas, yeah, they got a lot of talent, but there's a lot of questions there. Like, is there a team that you look at 1 through 16 that you say, this team has the least amount of questions?
I don't think I could agree more with you because, like, Texas, everybody talks about Texas's talent. Well, Texas lost some dudes in the trenches. And I know Arch Manning is supposed to be the end-all, be-all, and I'm not saying he's not. But he's new. He's never done it. They lost receivers. They lost a great tight end. They lost great defenders. And frankly, last year I thought Texas, you would watch them play, and it would be a quarter or 2 quarters of look like Tarzan, and then maybe a couple of quarters of play like Jane. But I think the whole league, again, it's back to parity. I don't think there's ever been a time in our life where you could just pick 2 teams out of a hat for football and say, this team could beat this one, whoever you draw. I mean, like Alabama and Vanderbilt last year. I don't ever remember a time where the team that was number 1 in the country in the SEC got beat by everybody's pretty much unanimous last place pick. That was kind of a sign of the times of where we are. And I think the portal is even out depth. You can't do what Alabama and Georgia did and just stockpile 5 stars and have them wait and wait and wait. Those guys get opportunities elsewhere. And I think those are just things that play out from Saturday to Saturday that have caused those questions that you asked.
I want to get to A&M here in a second, but since you mentioned Vandy there that you get to see up close, where are you with them this year? Because now they're a program that, like, all right, maybe they've arrived. They beat Alabama. You got a quarterback that a lot of folks talk about, although I feel like he's kind of done this thing where he was they love to talk about Pavia, and now they've kind of stopped talking about him, but then he made a couple comments last week, so they're talking about him again. So, like, where are you on Vandy this year?
I think, boy, first of all, Clark Lee winning 7 games last year, David, Vanderbilt, if Julian Ashby, their long snapper, hadn't been picked 7 picks before the end of the draft by the Patriots, that would have been 4 years in a row where they didn't have a single guy picked in the draft. Now, think about that a minute. They went down and beat Auburn. They beat a pretty good Virginia Tech team at home. They beat Alabama, as everybody knows. They beat a pretty good Georgia Tech team in a bowl. Like, how do you do that with the players they got? And obviously, the answer is a system and a guy running it who were just hard to defend because they were so unpredictable. But I think their roster is a lot better this year. They were not good at all on the offensive line. They went out. I don't know if you added up experience. It starts, and some of these guys were FCS guys. So we'll see how that translates. But I think their offensive line is much better. Their depth is better across the board. They've got some dudes on defense. They picked up an all-AC, albeit third team. He was a freshman safety in the portal. And Pavia's back. And David, the issue with Pavia last year was the supporting cast wasn't very good from the offense, and they couldn't keep him healthy. He got hit all the time. Now you've improved his line a good bit. I think his playmakers, they're still lacking a little bit, but he does have a first-team All-America tight end who was coming into his own a year ago. I think they're better across the board. The question to me is they can't sneak up on everybody like they did last year. It got a lot tougher from that Alabama game on. And again, a lot of that had to do with his health. But I think it's a better roster, but it's also a brutal schedule, and it's also a year of everybody having that on film, whereas they didn't have that a year ago.
I saw that, that people were coming after him as expected, as good as he was last year. And what was the number I saw? $4 million maybe thrown around. What do you think in the SEC was trying? Because, again, there's so many quarterback questions in the league because, how many guys are returning that have actually played of substance at that university? What do you think was after Diego?
If I had to guess, I would say it would have been Auburn. And I don't have any information there, but you've heard Hugh Freeze vocally talk about how tough he is to defend and how he doesn't want to see him again. And then you look out and with the quarterback he got, is also mobile and those kind of things. If I had to guess, it would be Auburn, but I don't know that for a fact.
Talking to Chris Lee here on TexAgs Live. Chris, let's talk about A&M because they're a team kind of like in the Pavia way that when they were 7-1, everybody was, talking about them. They get the injuries to Le'Veon Moss, and their offensive line takes a hit, and then they lose all of November, and their defense can't stop anybody. But a team that I think, regardless of if you're an insider or not, you look at them and go, I think Elko's got them on the right path. So where do you see A&M?
Well, I think number one, year two of Elko, which I think can be big. Sometimes it takes everybody a year, especially with all the moving parts in college football. You talked about the defense falling off. They had a ton of talent. They lost some of that to the league. But it feels like they've always recruited pretty good defensive talent. I don't recall many years where A&M was just bad on that side of the ball. And I think offensively, felt like when Moss got hurt, that's when it kind of started to fall apart. And you've got a quarterback in Marcel Reed, who was, by the way, a big-time prospect in Nashville that we heard about from a pretty early age in his high school career, who kind of came into his own when he got the opportunity. And I guess you've got more mobile quarterbacks in the league this year, so maybe it's a little easier to defend him because you see him more. But he's got that dimension, and you add Moss to that. They're pretty tough to stop when it's going. And, oh, by the way, you got a pretty good tackle in Zune, too, who can help a bit. They're an interesting one this year.
Well, I think it kind of reminds me of old school football where they're going to try to run the ball down your throat. And I think from a wide receiver perspective, they really haven't had the speedsters that they have this year in Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver and Terry Bussey in his second year. So I feel like they can be a hybrid team that you know what they're going to want to do. It's just run the ball down your throats.
Yeah, and those guys on the perimeter are good enough. Concepcion and those guys are good enough. I think it worked for them in spots for a long time last year. Again, you lost maybe the key guy to that other than your quarterback and Moss, but you get him back healthy. It looks a lot different. And, oh, by the way, the one thing I forgot on the defense, they've got a lockdown dude at corner. And that is one of those commodities. If you're starting a team, I guess you always build from the trenches, but you give me a guy that can lock down another guy's guy, and you could do a lot of stuff. I think Will Lee's going to be a key to them, too.
No doubt. Talking to Chris Lee here on TexAgs Live. Chris, let's kind of go through some of these different teams, and we'll just kind of go back and forth on things that you like or don't like about them. A team that a lot of folks are intrigued by is Florida, and I understand why, because the way DJ played at the end of the year. But again, Florida and Oklahoma, I can't get past their schedules. Even though they may be significantly better, I can't get past their schedules. Your thoughts?
Well, I was there with you too, and you remember when Florida just got buried by the schedule early, and you've got a coach who comes into the season already kind of on the hot seat. I just thought that's it. This is just not going to last. It's just, can they come up with the money or not? And then they got to the other meat grinder part of their schedule, and it started to really click. So there's that. You've got potentially a franchise quarterback who just about anybody would kill to have. But I go back to 2 or 3 years ago, and I talked to one of my guys that's pretty well connected in the league. And he said the storyline right now, the team that everybody's kind of scared of is Florida. And again, this was 2 or 3 years ago. This was before they hit the patch where they lost to Vanderbilt at the end of the year, and it got rocky for them. But they thought it's a guy who's building it the right way. The culture kind of, I don't know if he's gone bad is the way you say it under Dan Mullen, but certainly he was an improvement. And he survived all that last year, David, where it felt like the world was closing in on him. They came together to the end. They played their best football. They won some big games, and now they've got a killer quarterback, and are starting to build in recruiting and get the talent up to a level where it's more historically where Florida has been, if you trust the experts. So I think they're very interesting for all those reasons. It's funny, before you even said the team, you said the team I think is really interesting. Florida was the one I had on my mind too, and probably for the same reasons you did.
I think it could also be a cautionary tale that patience is okay in college athletics if it works out. I'm not saying just an isolated case of Florida, but if it works out with Florida, everybody was ready to fire Billy Napier after that A&M game last year. They were ready to fire him the year prior, right? And they stayed with Napier. They turned it around. They had the right quarterback to turn it around. If he can do it again, then I think it might be one of those like, hey, you know what? We don't always have to fire the dude. Let's let him get his 3-4 years in to get that culture in place.
Yeah, and people generally remember that for about 2 seconds until their team wins, and then the situation's different. But what I do think is interesting about him, you think about another high-profile football coach, this one with a lot more success, that's Dabo Swinney. He's come under a ton of criticism for not using the portal. But you know as well as I know, the portal, you can build through talent, but man, that can cause you some issues with jealousy and who's getting paid and recruiting over guys and all kinds of things. And you got a lot of old school coaches out there, Nick Saban being one, that's okay, I kind of know these guys because I recruited them and I built them. The portal is speed dating. And I do wonder if, and now that the rules have changed again, I do wonder if culture's going to become a thing a little bit again, where it's not just stockpiling guys like it's a fantasy football team. And it's interesting, Dabo Swinney seems to have Clemson primed in a pretty good spot this year, if you believe the people who put out the prognostications. And I wonder if Florida, because of the way Napier has tried to build it and really clean up the program, if you see some of that at Florida too.
I'm glad you brought up Dabo because I'm rooting for him. I mean, he's a national championship coach, right? But the fact that he didn't go all in to the portal, and I think he's kind of changed a little bit of his stance.
Yeah.
But he stayed true to what he wanted to be, and a lot of people were ready to move on from him too. And look, they were a good team last year, and they could have moved on in the postseason, in my opinion, and they might be really, really good this year.
Yeah, and again, it's back to short-term memory. I mean, coaches that succeed at a high level are victims of their own success, and he's one of them. I don't think Clemson's ever had a better coach than Dabo Swinney, and he's in a conference where it's harder than ever to compete against your big-time players in the SEC and the Big Ten. And look, the thing that I like about him, they've had years where they were off, and it was kind of blah by Clemson standards, but they're never bad. They don't ever turn in a 4-8 or a 5-7. And yeah, the league is easier, but I'm just a big fan of what he's done. Not only has he been to the top of the mountain a couple times, but he's been consistent. And I think if you're good at what you do, yeah, sometimes the game can pass you by. Sometimes there's personal things and reasons you need to move on. But I'm a big believer, and I kind of feel this about Brian Kelly at LSU too. If you've proven that you can coach over a long period of time, I don't like to get in the weeds about a little bump in the road here and there where it didn't work out. And I think Clemson not doing that, which would have been stupid anyway, may turn out to be an example. But again, I don't know that it's one people that will remember for long, but I do think it might matter.
Well, let's go to LSU because they're one of those teams that I'm like, yeah, they picked up a lot of talent in the portal. They got a quarterback that's got a lot of experience, and we know what happens in that second year of LSU with a couple of these quarterbacks. We know that we know what the story is. I still can't get past. I got questions about their defense, and I gotta have questions about the offensive line. If people are gonna have questions about A&M's defensive line, losing those guys to the NFL, I gotta ask questions about the LSU offensive line.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to a year ago. I was bullish on Oklahoma. I thought Oklahoma could have a really good year. And I'm looking back and going, okay, where could I have made a mistake? And they lost an offensive line that had played like 10,000 and some odd snaps. And granted, they're Oklahoma. They're going to bring in guys who can play, but there's a continuity and experience can matter. And so, then all those guys got hurt. It was a little different story. And then their receiving core got wiped out. And they ended up the year, having a disappointing season. But the analogy I make, the reason I bring them up is I think you see a little bit of the same at LSU, right? I mean, you've got Garrett Nussmeier, who could be, who knows, could be 1-1 if it goes right. But, man, they lost some good receiving targets, including a tight end and Mason Taylor that I loved. But I think more important, they lost 2 first-round tackles. How many teams have 2 first-round tackles on the same team? Not a lot. Not a lot. They lost some dudes in the defensive line. Now, look, they get Perkins back. He was a phenomenal player. He missed part of the season. How well does that go year one coming back? I don't know. I don't know. To me, when you lose a lot of guys in the trenches and you lose some of your targets, I'm not saying it's going to go badly for LSU, but, man, you were right. There's at least some yellow flags out there that make you wonder a bit.
I'm going to give you a comparison to that in different situation, but 2021 A&M was coming off the Orange Bowl victory. Yes, Kellen Mond moved on, but many thought that Haynes King was going to be a better quarterback. And they had these young up-and-coming guys on the offensive line that were going to be great, and they ended up being really good, right? But you lost a cohesive unit in that offensive line that could not be replaced the next year in 21. There were some other issues that year where they went 8-4. But I do think, people just gloss over, you just don't replace a quality offensive line guaranteed in today's era of college sports from one year to the next. It may happen, but it's not a guarantee.
The people that I know that I respect and know a lot more football than me, when they talk about building a team and they talk about, if you could take your NIL money and allocate it, you would do it probably along the offensive and defensive line, along with quarterback. And I mean, I think sometimes we bury the lead there. And that's, again, I think the way that you led into my answer there, you stated it pretty well yourself.
I'm not going to ask you for a win total for A&M. I don't like win totals. There's a lot that has to go into it. But I will ask you this: do you think they'll be in the conversation for the playoffs when November starts, like they were last year?
I'm looking to my right to their schedule. I mean, it feels like UTSA, Utah State are wins off the bat, probably. I mean, you never know. You saw what Notre Dame had last year with Northern Illinois, especially early in the season. But you would certainly bet 2-0, most likely. Utah State's not very good either. You got the road game at Notre Dame, which feels like potentially a free spot on the bingo card. Auburn at home. I don't know that I trust Hugh Freeze. You got Mississippi State, which I think is the worst team in the league. So, you got a shot to be 4-1 right there, Florida, but I think that's in your backyard, right? If I got that right. Arkansas on the road, but winnable. LSU and Death Valley, we'll see how they are at that point. Missouri, I think probably going to be down. South Carolina, defense, not as good. Is that Sanford and next to last week? And then Texas. I mean, it feels like most of those games are winnable, and other than LSU on the road, and in Texas too, which is obviously a rivalry game, that's a little different. It feels like, other than LSU and Notre Dame in Texas, I guess that's a lot of others, but it does feel like some of those swing games are in their backyard, and the schedule gives them a chance to ramp up. So, I mean, I feel like they could be in the hunt, but, man, some of these games anymore are just 50-50. And you catch a bad break or two, and 10-2 can become 7-5 really quickly.
Of those hard road games, LSU, which you haven't won since '94 on the road there, Texas being Texas, and Notre Dame. I feel like for that to be true, you've got to win one of those three, preferably two of those, preferably all three, if I'm saying preferably. But one of those three, and I think the Notre Dame game is the one potentially because even though they'll be tested against Miami in week 1, I think a new quarterback and some other question marks. I think that's a game last year that was way closer than the score said. They lost 20-10, but it was 10-10 with 1:47 left. So I think that is a very winnable game as of right now. But I think Freeman's he's doing a great job there at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and again, you saw them struggle a little bit early last year before they got it together. So I'm with you. I think that's winnable. I don't know if they win it, but it's winnable.
Hey, Chris, this was great, man. Let's do it again, okay?
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Chris Lee here on TexAgs Live. Appreciate his time. You can check out Southeastern 16. Great YouTube follow and great content. Follow him on social media as well. We'll hit a break, open segment, then we'll come back and do a little Mizzou conversation as I got an insider coming on the program. If your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to reach out to the Association of Former Students that bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, The Gathering. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests. And there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. And they offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. And these options include title sponsorship, naming, on-site presence, activation, and recognition of social media posts. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner that's been with the organization supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Want some maroon Kool-Aid? I'm going to give you guys some maroon Kool-Aid because I do believe that A&M isn't just positioned well, but they could potentially make a huge leap in all of their athletic programs in this new NIL era with the House settlement and all the things that we heard from Trev Alberts yesterday, the athletic director, because I think the scale, the structure, the alignment they have a model that I believe can sustain future success. And look, they've got to prove it. We've talked about the potential of A&M my entire lifetime, right? The potential, the untapped market, right? That it can be. But in this NIL era of revenue sharing, roster limits, financial uncertainty, there's going to be some of the haves that don't have, or not only don't have the resources, but are not positioned with alignment throughout the entire program that A&M right now feels like it's at. I mean, if you look at it from a leadership standpoint, say what you want about Trev, he's got a vision and he's laid it out. And I think if you take a look at the way we're doing things, look, there's a lot of chaos that is rocking college sports and is going to continue to rock college sports, but A&M is staying above the fray. We talked about them trying to just, continue to evolve with college sports to where they can do that and keep their traditions. And we know some of the storylines that are there. But this fear that I think some programs might have in the back of their mind with its new structure, you're hearing others with a little bit of panic, but A&M, like we're going to talk to a Missouri insider, Nate Edwards, here in a minute. I'm curious what he thinks about how Missouri is positioned with all of college athletics, not just the football program. At the end of the day, it's going to be about the football programs, but some schools are going to have to cut sports, and I don't think A&M's in that boat right now. What does the rest of the SEC look like? So when you look at it, all these programs are going to have the ability to share $18 million directly with athletes. And with A&M, we know the 6 sports starting this upcoming season. They're going to be funding 410 scholarships, right? Which was an increase of more than 150 from the previous year, which is above what some of the other schools in the SEC are doing in this state, by the way. They've already cut $10 million in expenses. They've had their layoffs without touching sports funding. And now they have more revenue stream with the Play Fly Sports deal that they signed, not long ago. So when you look at that, they are positioned for the future of college athletics. Now, they still got to go get it done. This is a restructuring that I think will really position A&M above the fray. And if they are above it, and as Josh Pate pointed out earlier in the show, right? And I think he did a great job saying, you want to be at least equal, right? If not above. You want to be in that same ballpark. And A&M is going to be equal or above the competition. And from a football perspective, they're going to be positioned. If you have the right guy at coach, which I think they do, and it's not about these cliches and this is, say what you will about Trev again, but I believe he believes this vision. He's got a proof of concept and a proof of execution. And now we'll see if everything that they've laid out, starting a week from today, gives you the frameworks of a national championship type of institution. And we've been waiting. Look, luckily we got track and field to win a national championship this year, women's tennis last year. But the revenue generating sports, the big 3, are going to be positioned, I believe, to put you at the next level. We'll I'm sure throughout the week when Billy's here, we'll talk about it. But this isn't just about a survival mode that I think a lot of programs are in right now. They're in survival mode. Texas A&M is in destruction mode, right? And that's exactly the case. All right, we'll hit a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Nate Edwards about Missouri. Got questions about their quarterback. Got questions, not really a lot of questions about their backfield, but about what the offense looks like this year and how good they can actually be after the last couple of years of being really, really good. That and more is TexAgs Live. All right, we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. One of A&M's opponents this year on the road is Missouri, and a team that last year had a phenomenal year. A&M did take care of business at Cobb Field. How will it go when they go on the road? Let's talk to an insider, Nate Edwards. Catch his work at Rock M Nation. Nate, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Appreciate you having me back on.
Yeah, man. Let's talk a little Mizzou. So talk to me about the quarterback situation. Is there actually a quarterback battle there? Is it Bo Prabula for sure? And what do we know about what he's been able to do in his transition? Long-winded question.
Yeah, I mean, we paid for Bo Prabula, so I'm assuming that he's going to be the primary guy to get at least the first team snaps as we go forward. Don't forget, we have a 4-star upperclassman in Sam Horn. Now, he has been splitting his time between baseball and football. He was injured in baseball last year, so he missed all of last season and really didn't get to see any play. But he was healed up by the time we got to the bowl, and we got to see a little bit of him during practice. Here's the thing. Bo Prabula is about as close to a Brady Cook clone as you are going to get. So if Eli Drinkwitz and Kirby Moore, our offensive coordinator, are looking to do a seamless transition from Cook and keep something consistent, Prabula would be your guy. He's a lot more mobile. He's got a lot more experience. So that's probably going to be the guy. But it sounds like, Horn's getting plenty of reps, getting plenty of opportunities to take the job as well. And he's been with the team the longest. So at this point, I'd say your betting favorite's going to be Prabula with the experience and the mobility, but I won't count out Sam Horn. We'll see what shakes out in August.
What does the fan base, what do analysts that cover the team locally feel about this team this year? Because, was it 2 out of the last 3 years, 10-win seasons? They seem like a program that's figured it out, but you lose a lot of talent, and Missouri is not Georgia. Missouri is not some of these bigger programs, Alabama, that you can lose the talent and you're guaranteed it's right back to where it was.
Yeah, and they've been able to try to get around the fact that they don't recruit at an Alabama or A&M or Georgia level by being really, really good at the portal, which is a strength of its own, and they hit a lot on their portal acquisitions. Now, the thing about portal players, they take about a year to really get going. And so you can't rely on that sort of thing to be just a one-year fix and no drop-off. So when you're thinking about this team, and you think about this Missouri team this year, I think a lot of fans are very positive. We've added a lot of good offensive transfers through the portal. Obviously, we've won 21 games in the past 2 years. Stock is high. Eli Drinkwitz's faith in him, it's very high. I'm the one sitting here going, I don't know, guys. I think we're kind of due for a crash back down to reality. If you look at the past couple seasons, obviously 2023 was very impressive, but 2024, with returning everybody, Missouri was very lucky to win 10 games. There was a lot of close one-score games. Now, that's Eli Drinkwitz's specialty, is winning one-score games, but they were very lucky in doing that too. They had some absolute stinkers against Vanderbilt and against Arkansas that they ended up winning. And really, if you think of it from more of an advanced analytics standpoint, especially SP+, it viewed Mizzou more as an 8-win team rather than a 10-win team. So there is likely to be some regression to the mean. And if you want to see that, I see it here. You're going to be looking at a transfer quarterback. You're going to be looking at a transfer running back who's going to be starting. You're looking at a transfer receiver who's going to be in the slot, which is the one spot that Missouri really likes to throw to. You're going to have 3 transfers starting on the offensive line. Eli Drinkwitz will sit here and say, this is the most talented team I've ever had. And I agree with him, but you cannot be looking at first-year starters coming out of the portal and saying, oh, there's going to be no drop-off, especially when the offense, which is based on being efficiency with big plays, essentially had no big plays last year, and now we're just expecting that new guys can be that explosiveness that we were lacking. I'll believe it when I see it. So I am hedging my bets a little bit. I think the fan base is still riding high. I'm more in wait-and-see mode because the defense is going to be good, but that offense has way too many questions for me.
So he said this is the most talented team he's had, and you do believe it? Just unproven?
I do. From a high school recruiting, from a star standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, yeah, we've not seen talent like this in Columbia for quite some time. But none of it is proven. None of it has been on this team for more than 2 years. I will believe it when I see it. Athleticism, yes. Effectiveness and wins, we'll see.
What is Drink great at, and what are some potential blind spots?
Drink is a pitch man. He's a born pitch man. Now, when we hired him back in 2019, we hired him because he was a young, offensive-minded guy, to the point where he was his own coordinator for 2 years, for the first 2 years. I think we saw the limitations of what being a head coach and offensive coordinator can be, and that was certainly a blind spot for him. Thankfully, he recognized it and hired Kirby Moore as his offensive coordinator. I think he was finally realizing he cannot be the offensive wunderkind that he thought he was, and just really embraced the fact that he's an elite pitch man. The other thing that I think that the people don't really see as much is he is incredible at building culture very, very quickly. You do not see Mizzou guys sit out bowl games, other than Luther Burden, which makes a lot of sense. You do not see a lot of upperclassmen transfer out. You do not see or hear any kind of issues with NIL opportunities or playing opportunities. He brings guys in from all over the place, and they buy into his vision. They buy into his program. And I don't know how he does it, but he's been able to build a culture that the brotherhood of the wilderness, I think, is what he's been calling it recently, where he just gets guys who believe in what he wants to do and get them pushing in the same direction. And you don't see fractures or infighting or hear anything about that as the season goes on. People are bought in to him and to this program. And I think that's probably, other than pitchman, I think that's probably his strongest suit at this point.
Nate, let's talk about that wide receiver room, because obviously losing some dudes, and we know Kevin Coleman's name, right? So beyond Kevin Coleman, and tell us a little bit about him. What can you tell us about that wide receiver room?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kevin Coleman has been tearing it up at 3 different schools. He's now at his 4th. Just an elite slot guy, and I think he's going to be filling in for Luther Burden fairly seamlessly. He's even going to wear number 3 like Burden did. They're both St. Louis kids, so they have a very similar game. Now, he's a little slighter than Burden was. Burden was pushing over 200 and was a burlier guy. Kevin Coleman's going to make you miss. He's 175, 5'10", so it's a little bit different style of receiver, but same effectiveness from the slot. Really, if you're looking at a guy who's going to make an impact, it's going to be a guy named Speedy. His name is Marquise Johnson. That's on the birth certificate, but we all call him Speedy. He is, if you rewind the clock to 2023, he was our deep threat. He was the 4th receiver in the rotation, but if a deep ball needed to be caught, he was the guy who did it. He was a menace on the outside, and he was actually injured for most of last year. But we saw him come back for the bowl game against Iowa. He was Missouri's best receiver by far. But don't overlook Josh Manning, the 3rd-year junior out of Lee Summit, Missouri. He is a bigger guy, 6'2", 210. He was playing behind Theo Weiss last year, so he's probably going to be more of that big possession sort of guy. 22 targets, 13 catches last year. You got to start to see a little bit of what he could do, especially as Burden was struggling throughout the middle of that year. But also bringing in a highly rated freshman in Donovan Olubade. In spring practice, he actually went viral with an incredible one-handed behind-the-back catch in practice. And they said, yeah, that he just does that all the time. Now, to look at a freshman and say, okay, produce at a Luther Burden level, that's not going to happen. But it is very intriguing of what he can bring to the table. You also have some younger guys in James Madison II, a.k.a. the president, Demarion Folks, who will be coming in. But they also added Xavier Lloyd from Illinois State, formerly at Kansas State, could not crack the rotation, exploded for 106 targets and 66 catches for 912 yards last year. I don't know what we're going to use him for, but it's a nice addition to a receiver room that's lacking 3rd-year players and above, other than Kevin Coleman. So this is not going to be the Burden, the Weiss, the Mookie Cooper receiving core that we've had for the past 2 years. There's still a lot of talent. It's very young. Maybe a guy like Sean Terry, the freshman speedster, might get in there. But what you're really looking at is Marquise, Speedy Johnson on the outside, Josh Manning as a possession guy, and then Kevin Coleman as your gadget slot guy. And I mean, it's not Burden, Weiss, and Cooper, but it's a pretty good replacement, if I do say so myself.
Nate, let's talk about Ahmad Hardy. I've heard a lot about him. I've seen the numbers. I have not watched his film, but he transfers over, and there's a lot of expectations for him.
There is. But I mean, look at Missouri running backs. If you take a look at since Eli Drinkwitz got here, you had Larry Roundtree made it into the league. Tyler Beatty made it into the league.
His name is Bidet?
What's that?
His name is Bidet?
That's what he's saying now.
Okay, interesting.
That's news to us. He was for 5 years. It was Tyler Beatty, but we'll see.
That's what I thought. I was like, Bidet. Okay, I would have picked another one.
Do what you want to do, man. I would have gone the other way, but that's his name. So then you got Cody Schrader. Obviously, he had an explosion in his second year. And then last year, Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll, they were great, but they were first-year transfer players who were never going to see a second year. I'm really curious to see how Ahmad Hardy translates. If you look at what he did at Louisiana Monroe, he was it. He was their entire offense, and every defense knew it. And he still got his yards. If you look at how he did, for contact, yards before contact, 1.9 yards. That's terrible. Yards after contact, 3.7. That's incredible. He was given nothing with a ULM offensive line, and he was asked to do everything, and he did it. So what can he do with an SEC offensive line against SEC defenses? I don't know. But there is a lot of expectation. Curtis Looper does nothing but put running backs into the NFL, and this Eli Drinkwitz, Kirby Moore system is going to give running backs opportunity to eat. I will say, Hardy's not going to be the only guy. There's a Jamal Roberts who's from St. Louis. He's in his third year. He was Missouri's third down back, even though they had Carroll and Noel last year. He still was able to get on the field as a third down back. And then, of course, Marquise Davis, the freshman speedster from Cleveland, Ohio. I think that's going to be your three-man set. Hardy will probably be the workhorse, but Roberts is really talented, and he's got experience. And, of course, Marquise Davis is the blue chipper. I think it could be a three-man rotation with Hardy just being a workhorse. And if he can replicate Cody Schrader from 2023, then we'll be set.
Nate, let's close out with the schedule. Just kind of navigate the schedule for us where they have some potential places to make win and to make hay and some areas of concern.
Yeah, I mean, you always kind of break these down into you're most likely to win, you're most likely to lose, and then your toss-ups. And really, it's going to be your toss-ups where you're going to be making the difference between a 7-8 win season or like a 10-11 win season. We get to play Kansas again, those jerks from the West. Going to call that one a win. Central Arkansas is what we open up with. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns come up. That's going to probably be a win. The weird thing about Missouri is that we have 6 straight games at home to open up, which is a very odd scheduling quirk. But UMass at Columbia, that's going to be a win. Really, outside of that, though, thus ends the guaranteed win section. I mean, you got Alabama at home, which will probably be a loss. Yeah, Texas A&M at home, which I'm not going to count anything against Texas A&M at this point. That's probably going to be a loss. And so really it comes down to South Carolina, at Auburn, at Vandy, Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. All of these I see as toss-ups just because I don't know what Mizzou has on offense. And almost all of those games are on the road where Eli Drinkwitz has historically stunk it up. So really, I mean, you could see a very thin line here of like a 6-win season if you take care of business at home other than Alabama and then nab one against Mississippi State or Arkansas. But there's just I don't see a path to 8 wins at this point. I think that would be a bonus if this team just is able to gel and somehow not have any drop off. Mizzou is due for a drop-off. There's been a horseshoe that's been squarely snug up Eli Drinkwitz's butt for the past 2 years. At some point, it's going to fall out. That close game luck is going to falter. And it's probably going to be this year when he has a new quarterback and a scattershot kicker. And it's just, those are the things that you need to win close games. The defense will be there, but it's going to be low-scoring stuff unless this offense can figure it out. I personally, I'm coming into the season thinking 7-5 or 8-4 is a very realistic record for Mizzou. Losing to Alabama, probably losing to A&M, probably losing at Oklahoma, and then Arkansas finally remembering that they know how to play football and getting one win in that rivalry that we have with them. So that's kind of how I see it. I'd love to be wrong, but I need to see more than what I know right now before I project anything above 8 wins.
I hope you're right, because that means A&M wins at Missouri. Thank you very much for your time, Nate. Appreciate you.
Thanks, David. Have a good one.
See you, man. Nate Edwards breaking it down here on TexAgs Live. All right, what a break. We'll come back with Around the SEC, brought to you by the Jackson Group, and get some closing text messages. It's TexAgs Live, and it's Bidet. You're a big John Travolta guy, Nick?
The only movie that I can think of that he's in is Pulp Fiction.
You never watched Saturday Night Fever?
Well, I know he's in that one. That's true. That's where that song's from. But no, I haven't.
And Staying Alive, you've never seen any of these movies?
Nope.
You're missing out. What about Face Off? Never seen Face Off?
Nope. Hey, you're an Indiana Jones hater. That's all.
I'm not a hater.
know.
I just don't think it's that good. The Raiders of the Lost Ark was good.
Yes.
What else? Temple of Doom was good.
The first and the third one are the best ones.
Look,
the fourth one, meh. Second one, meh. I didn't even see the newer one.
I recognize that I'm joining the AARP community, so I shouldn't be saying this out loud. I recognize that I'm close to that group, right? But like, I don't like old guys fighting. Like Liam Neeson.
I understand that. Yeah,
you know
I completely get what you're saying.
Liam Neeson in Taken 1, the guy was probably my age. He was freaking great. He was cool, right? He could fight. Liam Neeson in Taken 3 just moved poorly, moved very poorly. There's other guys. Harrison Ford in like the later Indiana Jones just didn't move well.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with Around the SEC, brought to you by the Jackster Group. Got a minute, so what's your question?
Well, we kind of talked about it yesterday when I was in the host chair, but I just wanted to get your take on it. Which position groups are you most and least confident in for Texas A&M this coming season?
So, the most confident, you can't go wrong with offensive line and running back room, right? Like that
seemed to be the
most
wisdom.
confident, right? Least confident, linebacker and defensive line. And I'll give you my why. Defensive line, it's the same question we had with wide receiver at Missouri. You don't just replace great talent and expect it. I feel better about it than, I think there's a possibility that the defensive line is better at getting to the quarterback this year than they were last year. I believe that is very possible. As for linebacker, they were good last year. I'd like to see them better, right? I think secondary is significantly improved. And I don't have time to keep going on this because we talked about something that didn't matter. Way to go, Nick, talking about John Travolta.
I'm the one that brought it up. I'm the one that brought it up.
God, way to go, buddy. We'll see you next time. Mañana. Bye.